are live. Set up. That. Run ads. How do I count? Motion duration 4 hours. Start count. Okay. Pretty simple there. Why is that? Howdy, Arrow. Good to see you. Popped in to say hello and good live. I won't be watching because I'm not Omiful. Well, hopefully, whenever you are, feel free to hop on by and check it out. Music going. C8 Clown, good to see you. GoPod, hello, hello. Stream music. Should probably have gotten some Umineko music prepared for this, but oh well. I'm sure we'll probably find some reason to extend or expand the playlist. Send out. Alrighty, there we go. Gamescom was nothing burger, more like Game Slop. Oh no. Rewatched your podcast appearances. I can't believe how hard you morbed. I still need to watch them all the way through on my end. I watched some bits and pieces, and I no wonder people thought I was Umiful. That shit is crazy. That is absolutely insane. Howdy, Double Jumper. Welcome, welcome. All right. Well, stretch. Howdy, hey, Clear. Good to see you. All right. Well, I linked that video for one sentence, but the ones that follow were so on point. Yeah, I was on some serious shit. Kenya345. Hello, hello. First time chatter. Just I feel like the title really says it all there, but I usually have more creative titles, so this one's pretty explanatory and straightforward. Today we're going to be doing a sketch request stream and an Umineko end of Umineko Q&A. There will be full spoilers for Umineko in the discussion, so if you are at all interested in reading Umineko and you have not finished it, I truly, genuinely, wholeheartedly cannot recommend reading it for yourself, watching Joe read it, engaging with it personally in some way, shape, or form. Please, please, please do that. Arrow, you've just requested one. I realized I forgot to set it up. Thank you very much, Leon Shade. We stand jelly in this house. Thank you, thank you. Howdy, Krakonis. Already listened to all of Joe's reactions at work. Let me. No one redeem the no one redeem the sketch request just yet because I forgot to set it up properly. Oops. Hi, Jilly. Heard you're going to be on the When They Cry podcasts. When are you going to get Joe on? I don't know. We're going to figure it out. Require viewer to enter text. There we go. Save. Review requests. Sketch requests. I'm going to reject yours. Arrow. Oh, well, If I reject yours, will you be able to do it again? Arrow, just tell me what you wanted on that one, and then I'll make sure to write it down so I don't forget. Because I have them limited to one per person per stream. But yeah, there are going to be Umineko full spoilers. So do be aware. I wrote it above. Sakutaro in fantasy armor. Why not? Let's see what comes of it. Okay, hold on. Let me real quick grab that. That will be our first one. Post that on in there. With these sketch requests, I'm going to be just fully straightforward with all of you. I haven't drawn in a long time. I am not feeling particularly confident in my artistic abilities at this moment in time. I'm doing this primarily so that I can try and build that confidence back up. I don't want anyone to be expecting full rendered pieces. I have in the Redeem, don't expect color, don't expect clean line art. I'm just going to try and sketch out the idea, see what comes of it. So don't expect anything super, super, super polished. I'm just going to see what I can do. But yeah. I'm looking forward to this. This one is it was a what was it? It was a sub milestone for our streamiversary last year. Which has been a long time coming. So definitely been meaning to get to this one for a while now. So we have our first request. And then let's get to it. I think I saw a couple of questions. When are you going to get Joe on? Said it wasn't sure about that one. When weren't you crying during the last stream? Let me get the music started. That feels like as good a question as any to start with. Pretty emotional music to start with as well. For the most part, genuinely, I tend to be... I don't know if I cry very easily when it comes to a lot of stuff. I think, like, media and music tends to make me cry a lot. And so when it came to the end of Umineko, where there's a lot of really important emotional moments happening one after another, this is even a little too loud for me. That's crazy. I'll just take one of your piece off. That's perfectly, that's fine. When it came to the end of Umineko, where it's just like emotional beat after emotional beat after emotional beat, I wasn't so much like full-on bawling the entire time, but it was more of like a simmering sort of like just on the edge, like tears welling up in the eyes for most of it, and then when it got to the Fukuen house, it just finally burst. And I was crying until it was fully over. Heard there's Jelly Umi chat going on. There is indeed. Kind of curious where you're at currently in Higu. Currently in Higurashi, I am on chapter 2 of... They're called chapters, but I'm just going to use episodes to differentiate between them. Chapter 2 of episode 3. I thought episode 1 was a little bit slow, but it ended really well, and I really like Rena, and her being the focus of episode 1 is good. I like that. Episode 2 was way better. It had some iffy moments in terms of pacing, but I, again, really like the characters. Rikishi is very good at his character writing. And, what else? Now episode 3 is... I'm only 2 chapters into it. It is a remarkable jump in quality in terms of the character writing. It could just be that I'm at the point now where I'm fully invested in the characters, but it's really good right now. It is I, the normal and reasonable chatter. Welcome, Pseudo Fossil. Welcome. Alright. Here's the thing. I gotta pull up... What is my mental image of Sakutaro? Because I don't remember what his hair looks like. Instead of a mental image, why don't I just pull up Sakutaro? Let's see. There he is. The man, the myth, the legend. Just gonna Control-Shift-A. No, that's not what it is. Who do you? Like, invert Control-Shift-I. There we go. Just pull a Rosa real quick and cut him in half. Howdy, Flora. Welcome. Now, we could also do plushy Sakutaro, which I'm trying to remember what he looked like. I know he had a massive fucking head. What did he look like? Something like that? Is that what plushy Sakutaro looked like? That feels close. Like, mentally, I feel like I'm on the dot there. Let's see. What are we working with here? I mean, not far off, all things considered. That's the original Sakutaro. Wow. And then long body. Little stubby limbs. Big ol' scarf. His little pin there. And then he had his little tail. There he is. Howdy, Mr. Sunrise. Welcome, welcome. That's what he looks like. That's him. It's the Sakutaro. Kind of jellycat shaped or whatever they're called. I'm not sure what that one is, but Slugcat. Is that what you mean? Slugcat would probably be the closest one that I can think of there. So if we want to put him in fantasy armor, we'll just take this real quick and then give him. You're so right, Flora. He's got to have the classic like billowing shonen scarf. Still has to come out in the front because that's who he is. Now, I am tempted to give him like big old pauldrons, naturally. However, still stubby little arms. big old tunic. I'm trying to like I've had Fire Emblem on the mind, so like shitty breastplate that only covers your chest and that's it is the kind of armor in my head right now. I feel like I gotta give him big old tunic. Cause that's what he's got going on, you know? Stubby little legs. Naturally. Little booties. Perfect. He's perfect. All right, now he needs his spear. Naturally. Every lion has its fangs. It's got to be way taller than he is. Naturally. You gotta get the fact that it's a tunic in there. I feel like he needs like a little belt. We all need like a little belt holding all our stuff together there. A little sword at his hip, perhaps. You can request sketches too. That's true. Howdy, Luna. Welcome, welcome. Big old spear. And then you know what? I dare say give him a banner on his spear. I think the flag is kind of colored like that. There he is. Oh my god, no. Oh no. Oh no. Beautiful. Is it not? We're actually gonna move his head down just a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. Alt, just to unselect a little more. There we go. Thank you, Scruffix, for the 2 months Prime sub. Greatly appreciated. We're just gonna get rid of that one. I think that's good. There we go. Fantasy Sakutaro. He's perfect to me. He's perfect to me. Uryu. The Majula theme? Ooh. Nice. Alright, I'm gonna check the stream manager just to make sure that I'm not missing any activity feed. Prime sub, we stand jelly, sketch card. There we go. Someone asked a little earlier, one request per follower. What are the rules for requesting sketches, by the way? I have general rules there in the request thing whenever you click on it. The general idea I'm going for is the Umineko Q&A start. The whole thing is an Umineko Q&A. Yeah, I'm just gonna be drawing and answering questions as I go. What was I gonna say though? Going for no OCs because that would be like way too complicated for me to like get a reference from you and all that stuff. So just ask for stuff that I would be able to just like look up and be able to draw it. Don't go for overly complex designs because I'm trying to keep these as like simple sketches that I can just get done in a couple of minutes. Don't expect anything colored or with super clean line art or anything. I'm just trying to make these like simple, quick sketch requests. Who's your favorite and least favorite character in Umineko? Favorite character... I almost said Rena. Honest to God, my favorite character would have to be Erica. Which is not something that I really expected going into it. Erica is a character who grew on me a lot as I continued reading. Mostly because originally I saw her more of like as kind of like a funny joke character. She's this very obvious satire of your standard mystery novel detective who is very like uncaring, unfeeling, unempathetic, as a very strong contrast to Battler as your very atypical, extremely emotional, extremely involved detective, right? And so she plays her role very well there. But then she has a couple of moments in episode 5 where the artifice like cracks a little bit, and slowly over the course of, well, not slowly, but very quickly over the course of episode 5 and 6, what is originally this kind of like walking trope character sort of molts into a much more complex, much more, in my opinion, like tragic character over the course of her runtime. I think Erica is probably the character that I wasn't expecting to like as much as I did, and so that's why she ranks so highly for me. She has a lot of moments of very unexpected depth, or a lot of things that I can really look at and like analyze in a lot of really interesting ways. In particular, her scene in episode 6 talking to Delanor about being cheated on by her boyfriend. Not only is that scene is doing so many different things all at once. I've started to say it sort of like as a joke between Lurf and I whenever we're talking about it, but like, fucker can write. It's establishing a lot about Erica's personal relationships, her personal philosophy on life, her relationship with truth as a concept, in general, how truth is something that is based on perception, and a lot of like discussions about like there can be these personal mysteries in your life that whether you want to or not, you essentially need to decide when you have found the answer, because an answer will never come to you in that regard. Which is something that really, really hit home for me. Howdy, hey, Walrus! Welcome, welcome, Party 58. I'm gonna do this one. Izilla is here. Said, can you do your model in the OG Umineko style? I can certainly try. We'll see how it goes. Welcome, welcome, Raiders. Just want to make sure you're all aware. I know it says it in the title, but currently we are doing a sketch request and Umineko full spoilers Q&A. I really thank you very much, Jenner, for the tier 1 gift sub. 6 months. I know. What is it? There are going to be full spoilers for Umineko. I wanted to have a chance where I could sort of field questions from folks and see what they were interested in knowing from my perspective, because, you know, even though it's Joe streams and Mouse streams, and I was really just a guest on that, it's very clear that people, you know, really enjoyed my presence on there and they were interested in the things that I had to say. And I feel like finale would be a little incomplete if I didn't share some of my own thoughts in that regard. So do be aware, there are going to be full Umineko spoilers over the course of this stream. If you did not watch Joe's streams, if you didn't read it yourself, I cannot emphasize enough how much Umineko means to me. It is an incredibly, incredibly, incredibly dense, rich, layered work, which has reignited and reintroduced me to my love for literary analysis and literary discussion. It has been the highlight of the past 6 months of my life. It is the reason why I will look back upon 2025 with an overwhelming fondness in the future. I cannot recommend it enough. It is truly, genuinely, wholeheartedly something that I think is very, very special, and you would be doing yourself a genuine disservice by spoiling yourself on it flippantly. I cannot recommend it enough. So if you don't have full context for Umineko, all I can do is ask you to leave, essentially. 6 out of 10, easy 10 out of 10 for me. Thank you very much, BroOC, for the tier 1 gift sub, and thank you very much, Walrus, for the tier 1 gift sub as well. 4 months, 3-month streak. I can't believe the true Umineko was the friendship all along. I know, right? Thank you for the warning. Let's see. Have you recovered from the Sakugas crash out fully? I did, yeah. That was a very, very fun stream moment. That was a lot of fun. Can you do the pro tag of the devil in the OG Umineko style? Oh my god. Thank you very much, Lurf. Hold on. Oh my god. I gotta open it in the stream viewer. Thank you, Lurf, for the 5 tier 1 gift subs. Greatly appreciated. Moa, let me get yours going here. Pro tag of the devil in the OG Umineko style. Again, I can certainly try. I do want to say again the whole preamble of like, don't expect super high quality stuff from all these sketches and stuff like that. I'm really rusty, and I wanted to do this mostly as like an exercise to get me back into the swing of things. So what you see here, this Sakutaro is a general. This should be like your general impression of what to expect. Just something relatively quick, something relatively simple, maybe a little more or less detailed depending on the prompt, but something along these lines is probably what you should be expecting. That is Lurf from Podcast, yes. And technically, you're listening to Jelly, soon to be from Podcast. But I have recovered from the Sakugas crash out. I will say, I will, in theme with the Answers arc, I will reveal some of the magic at the heart of Umineko and tell you, as I have talked about on the podcast before, I believe, I did know ahead of time that Sakutaro was Sakugasp. I have drawn Sakugasp emotes multiple times, and so I have had to look up the original fan art. And I saw that Maria was there. Although at the time, I did not know it was Maria because she was wearing her Maria Beatrice outfit. So I wasn't fully aware in that case. But I was aware that Sakugasp was from Umineko. So, you know, I suppose I'm a witch in that I've created an illusion in that regard, because your boy certainly can act. Hopefully that didn't ruin the magic too much. Does wide jade head using green line art on a black background sound doable? I mean, I can certainly try, yeah. Sure. We're really piling them up now. Uh-oh. I saw Lurf. I'd love to request a Renner Ryugu. Just a Renner Ryugu in general? Alright. Sounds good. I'm going to try and arrange these in the order that I get them generally. Also, yes, Boulder, I know you're going to be the one to ask. This is, in fact, the D4 soundtrack. Did you realize you were going to do deep Uryus for Sakugasp, though? Not at all. No. The Sakutaro voice is something that was a very happy accident. I wish I could remember the chatter who was like, Sakutaro should have a deep, prideful roar like the king of the jungle that he is. But they are really... they're the fucking... the hero of Umineko streams in my heart. Because it would have just been cutesy mascot voice the entire way through. And that is a completely different universe from the one we live in. Which was a lot of fun. This ties into, someone asked a little earlier, who were my favorite characters to voice. I really obviously loved voicing Sakutaro. I've been saying to a couple friends, now that I'm Umiful, these motherfuckers should have warned me that now I live in a world of emotional landmines, because certain thoughts or ideas or concepts will just hit me out of nowhere, and I will find myself just, like, you know, having to choke back tears because I come to a stupid realization, like, oh, I'm never gonna get to voice Sakutaro again. Which is, like, if you had told me before I started reading Umineko that I would cry because I didn't get to do a manly voice for a little lion plush anymore, I mean, I'd probably believe you, but I'd be very confused. It's really, really, really strange, how these sorts of things pan out. So I'm really, really happy with how that shook out. I'm gonna have to just stop and read for a second. Oh man, I'm not used to this level of chat volume. Hold on. Can I give myself more room to look at chat on OBS? I can. Okay, good. That helps a little. Let's see. If I don't get to your question, feel free to ask it again. Try not to spam too much, but I'm used to a lower volume chat, so do be aware I'll probably miss it or something along those lines. After this Q&A, will you ban Umineko from this channel forever? I think it is an immutable part of who I am now. I don't think that I could ban Umineko from this chat in any rational capacity. Let's see, and SPM. Hi, Jelly. Your Umineko discussions are always my favorite when you joined as a guest. It was genuinely impressive how early you caught onto the feminist themes, and reading your follow-up thoughts and discussions is always super engaging. There's no exaggeration to say your presence in Umi streams truly cemented them to me as absolute cream streams. I can't wait to hear on the pod. Thank you very much. That's really kind of you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've said it before, but I am truly, truly, truly honored to have been a part of this project. I don't really know what words to use to properly describe it. But I mean, it is something very special to me in ways that I can't properly articulate, other than to say what I have said before, which is that I know I will look back on these 6 months in the future with an overwhelming fondness. I am in a happy memory right now, which is maybe a bit too poetic of a way to say it, but I mean, I have an English major. I'm entitled to a little bit of flowery language. Which episode is your favorite? Hold on, let me see if I can drum up my... I made a tier list real quick before. That's really... Where's my pen? I keep putting my pen down and then forgetting where it is because I'm under the gamer trapezoid and it's dark. New lair. So, favorite episode? We'll fill them in front to back. Or, you know what I mean. We'll go back and forth. Favorite episode is 8. Through and through, 8 is my favorite episode. 100%. Followed closely, or perhaps equally, by 4. I am someone who is very strongly influenced by my emotions, and 8 and 4 got the strongest emotional reactions from me. Angie Lover, 100% Angie Lover, yes. Erica is my favorite character, followed closely by Angie. Angie is... I really loved everything to do with Angie. I feel like when she was introduced to the story is when I really locked in on more of the emotional themes of Umineko and started considering what the ultimate conclusion of the story might be in terms of like where these characters are going to end up. I loved everything to do with Angie. If you want a good indication of like how much I cared for Angie and why the end of Umineko was so impactful for me, throughout reading 8, I was fully convinced that she was just going to kill herself. And so the fact that neither the trick ending nor the magic ending result in that really hit me emotionally hard. Whenever she stepped back from the ledge in the magic ending, I kind of just, my breath hitched and I wasn't able to compose myself for the rest of the end. It really means a lot to me. So Angie is absolutely a very beloved character to me. So Erica, then Angie, then Battler, I think. Battler is just an unbelievable protagonist. It's remarkable how often you and Battler are on the same page as a reader. That is a testament to Ryukishi's ability to interact with the reader through time, that he is always on the same page or just about to get to the same page as you in a lot of regards. And as soon as you are behind Battler, Angie enters the story and you're on the same page as her. If your favorite characters are Erica and Angie, I'm assuming you actually quite enjoyed the trick ending. I did enjoy the quick trick ending quite a lot, yes. For a number of reasons. One, I like that it is a bad end, which is not just a complete throwaway thematically. I think it is a perfectly valid conclusion for the Angie of that world. I think it's really important that the trick ending puts her towards the end of her journey that you see in episode 4, whereas the magic ending brings you to the very beginning of it, because she is living in fundamentally different worlds at the start of each of the 2 endings. In the trick ending, she is already in a situation that is too dire for the more optimistic Angie of the magic ending to probably survive at all. So I think it's really interesting that they found a way for both perspectives of Umineko to be completely valid in that regard. That said, it is still very clearly the bad ending, and the I in my interpretation, like non-canon ending, because of just how much more development the magic ending gets and how much more the magic ending resonates with the overall themes of Umineko. Also, I didn't like Amakusa, so it was very funny to see him get shot. So, you know. All right, time to throw away all of my goodwill. My least favorite episode is 7. That is not to say that I disliked 7. I didn't dislike 7. All right? I quite enjoyed it. All of Umineko is pretty great as far as I'm concerned. However, though I do love the presentation, though I do love the new characters of Will and Leon, I found that the more direct explanation, presentation of episode 7 had me a lot less engaged with the text in the same ways that I was engaged with it previously. I wasn't doing as much thinking, as much deduction, and just overall wasn't really having a lot of that interplay that I had come to love in all the previous chapters of Umineko. And that's by design. Episode 7 is this break in the action where rather than being an active participant, you become a member of the audience. It is very much designed with that experience in mind, and it does that very well. But to me, that was less engaging than all of the previous chapters. I still really enjoyed it, but not as much as the others. Sorry to say this, but you're pirate softwaring right now? What exactly does that mean? Seeing a guy with military experience get clapped by a teenager with paranoia makes enough room for Amakusa slander. Talking and writing on a paint can. You're gonna ascribe the process of fucking writing while talking to a stream as pirate softwaring? He gets full claim to that? You've got to be kidding me, dude. You got to be fucking with me. He doesn't get that. That's not his. Oh, okay, let's tackle some of these. Now, here's the thing. I don't exactly know how I would go about doing my model in the OG Umineko style. Because a lot of it is down to, like, the rendering and the like. So I'll do what I can in that regard. I think if I wanted to, I would probably want to do something like that just to portray like a little bit of the shading. I do have the ref from the podcast, that's true. Go for more circular eyes here. Did you know that Vegetal Lion is a play on words, and you're supposed to say it like vegetarian? Oh, vegetarian? Vegetalian? Okay, that's pretty cute. I like that. All right, now an important thing I've learned is that the blushies are really important. The way that Ryukishi draws blushes is very distinct. Right? It's these like chevrons and little zigzags that he does. Need this like a little bigger. This needs to be a bit bigger as well. Fine. Oh, wrong color. Give the bag the Erica shitting herself expression. I don't know how I would. Hold on. That's kind of what's going on. It's like I don't know. Do you perceive any loose threads or remaining mysteries that you wish the game addressed more? Not particularly, no. Um, well, here's the thing you gotta understand about how I interacted with Umineko. Um, I really didn't interact with the mystery side of the text all that much in terms of trying to solve closed rooms or the like. Um, it was very much a thematic analysis for me through and through because that's largely what where my strengths lie. Um, in terms of like actually solving any closed rooms, like I'd say and stuff like that. I only really the closest I ever really came was the episode 3 first Twilight, where I solved the closed room chain, but I really only solved the closed room chain because it was like a stepping stone for me for understanding Sayo's identity and how that could be possible. Or it was kind of the reverse. I don't know what it was about that made me latch on to it and caused me to understand it. Maybe it was just I was on stream and so I was in like thinking overdrive or something along those lines. But I really locked in for that one. I'm not really sure what to do in regards to like the body. Too bad George didn't get cucked. I have softened somewhat on George. In retrospect, I still think he is one of the like larger thematic failings of the text in regards to like the power dynamics between his relationship with Shannon aren't really touched on all that much. But like as a character, what he represents in the text, I understand that. Like I understand what Rikishi is really like going for, but I don't think that he executes on it all that well in a lot of ways. I'm also trying to remember what my outfit even looks like as I'm drawing this, which is a strange experience. Erica shrug. I feel like I'm going more Higurashi-esque in these popcorn hands, but I don't know if this brush would work well for the classic style. Yeah, that's part of it. These might end up being a little difficult in that regard, but I'll do what I can to get as close as I can. Higurashi does have a funnier art style, yeah. Now here's the problem is now I have to actually draw the limbs for this. And this is where the fact that I'm very rusty shows up. And don't really know what I'm doing here. This fucking expression is crazy. What are you most excited for when you read Umineko 2? You're right, the hands would be way bigger. I think a reread of 5 and 6 will probably be the more interesting like parts of it. Mostly because I feel like as much as I enjoyed 5 and 6 as just like kind of being along for the ride in a lot of regards, I feel like this expression isn't going, not really liking the shrug here. Let me look at a sprite real quick. Let me pull up. I'll just pull up Battler as a quick example. Battler Umineko. Gotta make sure I'm getting the original. All of these are PS3. How are you gonna show me Pachinko Battler before you show me original Battler? That's fucking heretical as far as I'm concerned. One of them is him crying. One of the first ones that pops up is just him fucking crying. Okay, so now I'm running into the problem of, okay, there we go. I need like a full body sprite of the man so I can figure out what's going on. Favorite Umineko OST? I think for me it's between Look Back and Prison Strip, which are two very tonally different pieces. It's hard to get like a real full impression of what exactly is going on, because his hands are relatively hidden here. What does Willard look like? Hold on. Why do I feel like he also has his hands in his pockets? It's because he does! God damn it! Son of a bitch! This guy looks exactly the same between all three of his iterations. It's crazy. This is the same person through and through. Most consistent man in all of Umineko. I feel like I wasn't supposed to see that. He looks vaguely pirate-esque. Interesting. What's going on with his belt? Don't worry about it. He's got like the cool, like, you know, hanging belt. That's cool. He's cool in between carrots. Also, everyone say hi to Ruby. The lower body segments feel like looking at a mount. Yeah, like I'm not supposed to see this part of him. You know what? I'm just gonna look up Erica. I'm just gonna draw myself in Erica's outfit. How's that sound? The original sprites are very charming to me. There is something there that I think... I mean, the PS3 sprites are good. They're very technically good. I will never talk down on anyone who enjoys the PS3 sprites, because they're certainly better than the alternative of the Pachinko sprites. I'll say that much. However, this is plenty charming. One of the things that I never noticed is she's actually, like, holding on to the frilly part of her dress here, which I think is very cute. And pop. I do think that the line thickness is actually a very important part of this. What about the people who enjoy the PS3 sprites CGs for Higurashi? As long as it's not the Manga Gamer ones, then I think we're fine. Okay, so... like a frill collar thing going on there. I feel like the lines are a bit too thick, and for some reason our music has stopped. No, because they want model in the OG Umineko style, so I feel like I should be doing my actual outfit. I'm hemming and hawing quite a lot, as you can tell. I just need to get like a reasonable frame of reference for like the level of detail I should be working with here. I think I'll be good to go. Also, it's again, sketch request. I shouldn't be focusing too hard on all the minutia of everything. Just be drawing from the heart, as it were. We love how the OG sprites follow the Zune rule of do not draw hands under any circumstances. The man knows his strengths and knows how to play to them. I will say that much. Do you have an idea of your favorite moments per episode? Hard to say, really. Again, there's a lot of moments that I'm not really remembering all that well. Especially in episode 1, it's very hard for me to remember a lot of what happened there. But I feel like... How does he draw these legs? Okay, gotcha. I feel like a lot of the time... I don't know, I have a hard time remembering specific events when it comes to a lot of stuff to do with Umineko. It is a lot of, like, you know, flashes of emotional moments and the like. Or just, like, general ideas of big moments. I think... I'm trying to think back to the stuff in episode... Like, the earlier episodes that I like that I don't remember all that well. Legs are always so hard to draw for me. This is my weak point. I avoid drawing legs whenever possible. Episode 2, I think, had a fantastic ending. With the whole, like, credit sequence and Rosa defending Maria and all that stuff. All of that was really quite good. That stuck with me for a while there. I feel like they're a little goofy, but you know what? We'll be fine. We'll live if the legs aren't perfect. They don't have to be. This is coming out a little more Higurashi than Umineko, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Who are you going to main in the Umineko fighting game? Unfortunately, it's a tag fighter, so I'll probably be terrible at it. However, I would probably be most interested in trying Delanor, Erica, 410, Jessica, maybe. And I think Battler's a grappler, so I'd probably like him to some degree. That arm feels too short. Hold on. Not quite. Needs to come out more. It's a little better. It's definitely a Higurashi hand right there, that's for sure. Needs to be a little bigger, I think. Hit on knowledge of the Umineko fighting game existing seemed like a joke in episode 1, and then the end it makes total sense. Yeah. It's crazy to me the amount of Umineko spoilers that are just like so easily available by looking at the fighting game's existence and also looking at the Steam page for Umineko in a lot of cases. If like one of the things that is kind of insane to me is if you look at the like store page for Umineko Answers arc, one, you see Battler in Kinzo's cloak, and that's a crazy thing to see. But two, if you look at like the profile rewards and stuff that you can unlock, there is just straight up a profile background of Ikuko and Toya. Which is insane to me, because that is literally like the ending of Umineko entirely. Here's what I think we need to do. Hold on. Simply by adjusting the length of the legs. I mean, all things considered. All things considered, I don't think that's too bad of a job. Now, if we wanted to do, like, shading and the like, obviously we'd get into more of a... Oh, whoops. You know, going for... He does relatively simple shading when it comes to stuff like that, at least. Not bad, all things considered. And then, for some reason, I ended up doing the, as Joe calls it, Erica shitting her pants face. There we go. Hey Jelly, I've been a VOD watcher for Joe's Umineko streams. I just want to say it was always so exciting whenever you were on stream, so thank you. Thank you, Kavos. I think that's how I would pronounce your username. That's very kind of you. Honestly, not bad for getting it real quick. That's not half bad at all. Now we just gotta do it again for Morgan of the Devil. I suppose you might become despoiled on Toya once you get to ye old fascist Kinzo, since you might think it's him. I mean, possibly, yeah. I still think it's a crazy thing. Okay, but there are also people who put "you are incompetent" cackle line break E in the Steam page images. That's possible, yeah. Or that is the case. I don't know. I just feel like Umineko is unfortunately in the same sort of place as like the Outer Wilds, where whenever you recommend it to someone, you just have to be like, no, listen, dude, you have to trust me. This changed my life. But don't look up anything about it. Don't look up anything. Just trust me. Just trust me. Just trust me. Don't look up literally anything at all. Okay? Just, you have to trust me, bro. Read this and it will change your life. I resent Steam cards giving away character names or occasionally plot points. That's something that I've had to deal with while reading Higurashi, is I will get Steam cards, and I remember when I realized they existed, I was like, oh, hey, Lurf, there are Steam cards for all the Higurashi chapters. And they're like, oh, huh, let me check them out real quick. Okay, don't look at those. Those are spoilers. There are massive, like, end of chapter spoilers in the trading cards for Higurashi. Don't look at any of those at all. Don't look at them. Don't. So I just have to be really careful while navigating that whole range of pitfalls. You can never unknow something. I know. Umi is way harder to do that though though considering the opening. That's true. Yeah. I don't know. It's in a strange spot where I'm usually someone who is very, very lax on spoilers. So I don't really tend to worry too much about stuff being spoiled for me. So Umineko was a very unique experience in that I spent 6 months of my life vehemently avoiding spoilers as much as possible. Which is a very new experience to have to be so careful in every online interaction I have, lest something very important be suddenly revealed to me. This is really, really strange. One of the big things... And then it was also really strange finally finishing Umineko, and now I can just look stuff up and not have to worry about it at all. That's a crazy feeling. That's a very, very crazy feeling. That's insane. However, I did have a funny moment where I was like, oh, I'm free! I don't have to be afraid anymore! And I watched one, holding up my finger with the index finger extended, one Umineko meme video, and I saw a single character sprite I didn't recognize, and I was like, okay, alright, well, I'm afraid again, back into my cave. I can't ever come out again until I'm done with all of Higurashi, I guess. Because they might be from Higurashi. I don't know. Or they could just be from fucking Tsubasa. Who knows? Saw one fucking meme compilation with a grayed out Oishi sprite, and I was just like, oh no, they can use those too. Shit. Oh no, I still have to be scared. Have you seen the Kraus Moonstocks video? Not only have I seen the Kraus Moonstocks video, it spoiled me on 556. A little. Now, granted, this was after 00 had already been revealed, so it was just a matter of, like, I knew 556 existed, I just didn't know what she looked like. So I saw the Moon Tourism video, and I was like, oh, okay, that must be 556 then. But, you know, I feel like I earned anything to do with the Chiesters rightfully, considering fucking Chiesters were just an instant, like... I've said this before, the Chiesters for me were, I took a nap midstream, I woke up to bunny girls going, yeah, and then someone in stream chat was like, oh, Jelly, how does your feminist reading account for the bunny girls in Umineko? And I just fired from the hip, and I was like, they're Kinzo's rifles, bunny girls, Playboy bunnies, Kinzo's a patriarch, I don't know, is that good enough for you? And then no one said shit to me ever again because I was exactly right. No one said shit to me ever again about the Chiesters because I was exactly right. Woke up from a nap, fired from the hip, bullseye. It's amazing. Waking up, throwing apps. Sometimes you just get it. There's nothing there's no technique to it. There's no strategy. You can't plan for just fucking getting it in one. That said, it was powered by spite to some extent. So, you know, that was, for me, where I reached the peak of being annoyed that people kept asking, like, oh, how does your feminist theory account for this? Because half the people in chat didn't understand that feminist literature doesn't mean that bad things never happen to women and women are always right and women are always good and men are always evil. You have to actually portray the systemic imbalances in order to critique them, right? So I just got fucking fed up with it. And then the Chiester War was my breaking point. Just read the fucking label. Yeah. At a certain point, someone asked me, and I think I said something along the lines of like, "Oh, do you want me to chew your food for you, you blithering baby bird? Do it yourself." Fun fact, in the original Witch Hut translation, they were misnamed as Siesta Sisters. Some people, you know how I knew that I was onto it with the Chiesters? Is I had some people, the Chiesters more happened before Umi Full and Umi Den were segregated, right? They were torn apart from one another. And when I said, oh, Chiester Winchester, I had some people being like real quick to say like, oh, actually, in the original one, they're called the Siesta Sisters. And I was like, interesting. I disagree. I still think I'm right. And what do you know? Bullseye. Simple as. Sometimes, Occam's razor cuts quite cleanly. So, protag of the devil in the OG Umineko style. Alright, so we have to look up Morgan of the devil. What does her normal sort of pose look like? I mean, we're getting lots of concept art. I would like to see Morgan of the devil sprites. I would just like a normal... You know what? We can work with this one. We can work with this one. If you have not played of the devil, I highly recommend it. Of the devil is really good. I read it not too long ago, so if you want to watch the VODs on that one, that could be a good little intro to it. It's a nice mystery game, mystery like sort of in the same vein as Danganronpa. Ace Attorney. It's very heavily influenced by a lot of novels, a lot of visual novels like Umineko. There's some pretty overt Umineko references at some point. And again, yeah, as Brosi is saying right now, Episode 0 is 100% free. I cannot recommend it enough. Episode 0, I have a couple issues with some of the mechanics and pacing in Episode 1 of the devil, but Episode 0 is, in my opinion, about as perfect of a proof of concept for a game as I have ever played. It is just fucking firing on all cylinders at all times. It is absolutely, positively immaculate the entire time. I loved Episode 0 of the devil, and I'm not holding Episode 1 to that same standard because it's longer, so it can't really maintain that unbelievable momentum, but it still sticks the landing quite well so far. My problems with Of the Devil are really like mechanical in nature. There are some mini games in there that I don't really love, but again, Of the Devil Episode 1, free. Play that shit. I cannot recommend it enough. Really, really good. The thing with the Chiesters is also, like, their whole deal is shooting, so it's not, like, really hard to make that lingo connection. Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that one, too. Like, they're called the Chiesters, and the thing they do is they show up and they shoot people. Like, they're guns, really obviously. And they're named Chiester 410 and Chiester 45, both of which are... I think one of them is... buckshot, and the other one is a rifle caliber. Yeah. Or no, 00 is buckshot, I think. But yeah, they're both rifle. Like, it seemed like such an obvious thing to me. The fact that so many people in chat were like, I don't know about that one, was like, I knew that people were just talking themselves out of it because it seemed too good to be true. Okay, so now here's the good thing, is she's got her hands in her pockets. 556 comes later. 00 is a shotgun gate. Yep. And then as soon as what is it? As soon as I'm gonna pull Willard up because he'll be a good example of character with their hands in their pockets, how Rikishi does like fabric wrinkles and stuff like that. Uh, it's a good example. Oh my god, why the tiniest, ittiest, bittiest, crunchiest PNG of Willard to ever exist? Oh my god, look at him down there. I mean, I don't really like. Shit, it's hard to get a really clean idea of how he does his fabric folds whenever it's that small. Shit. I can work with that, don't worry. They closed Umiful? It's oh no. That's actually kind of sad. I wanted to have more discussions in there. That's a shame. Well, I guess the Umineko server, like the undercourt, still exists, so we can still talk there. Where were you when Umiful was killed? Here, apparently. So here's the thing. In order to draw Morgan, I have to understand how the fuck this hair would translate. Let me... Can I get... Hello, I would like to request a slightly larger PNG of Willard J. Wright. Thank you. Sorry, Willard H. Wright. That would be nice if I could... There we go. Hey, there we go. His big brother moved into town. Good old John Ushiromiya. Alright. Let's move our reference images down here and see what we're working with. Don't talk to me or my son ever again. Illusions to illusions. The sins of the father cannot become the sins of the son if the father doesn't exist in the first place. Where'd my pen go? God damn it. Everything on my desk is like dark gamer slate gray. I hate it. Okay. I wouldn't trust someone with a diagonal belt strap over a V-neck shirt. You can trust him. He knows to remember the heart. He considers the heart. What is this one? I've lost my layers. Okay, that's the shading. Gotcha. So we want to go here. Get rid of John Ushiromiya. John Ushiromiya. Where did he go? Where's my mom? Morgan also knows to consider the heart. +2 on that one. I'll give you a +2 for that easily. All right, we're gonna stop trying to think too hard about it and just go for it here. No. And I do need the Morgan hair diagram. That would be useful here. I think it would also be useful to have Rosa pulled up, because Rosa has bangs similar to how Morgan has them. Rosa Umineko. Yeah, and Rikishi draws straight bangs relatively simply. Although, there's a world of difference between the level of quality you see in Rosa's sprite and the level of quality you see in Willard's sprite. These are two vastly different points in Ryukishi's artistic abilities here. It's crazy, the gap between the level of detail in the clothing and the shading and stuff like that. Not that he wasn't already doing a really good job here, but it's really good. Will was very late in Umineko, yeah. Those would probably be closer to, like, here about. There we go. Favorite Rosa moment? Obviously, the end of episode 2 is the easiest one to point to. It's just a very, very, very cool moment for her. Probably like the coolest moment, other than when everyone is just having their cool moments at the end of episode 8. There, you know, when everyone just gets to be cool as fuck for a little bit. Music? Did you stop playing? Riki's style is the most motivational scene I've seen when it comes to drawing. Having no talent doesn't fucking matter if you know how to execute what's on your mind. Absolutely, I agree. I don't think that he didn't have talent. Even looking back at Higurashi, you can still tell that he definitely had like a very good grasp of, I think, rendering in particular. Even though it's like very clearly like airbrushed, like early learning how to draw digitally kind of art. One of the things that he really nails is expressions. Rikishi's expressions are phenomenal in Higurashi, and they just get better in Umineko. He's very good at making really subtle changes to the facial expressions and positioning of the head and body posture to create vastly different expressions, or vastly different like, I mean, expressions is the only word that I can really think of. I don't know why I was reaching for another one. Sadako gets some sprites in Higurashi 3 that just sort of slightly narrow her eyes and tilt her head back, and suddenly it becomes this very, like, gentle, fond expression for her that's really surprising to see on her. Every single time a new character expression has been introduced in Higurashi so far, I have been able to say, like, is that one new? Because it's so strikingly different from what I've seen before, even though it's generally very subtle. We're just gonna go for that. Probably looks generally fine. Go. Now I have to figure out this in the back here. I guess I kind of got it there, relatively speaking. And then it's sort of like pinned up in the back here, isn't it? Something like that. Not bad, all things considered. And then a lot of the Rikishi style comes down to like how he shades things like their faces and their hair in a lot of regards. Serene Sadako smile, definitely one of my favorite sprites of her. It's a very welcome surprise when it appears. How do I want to draw her eyes? I feel like she has kind of like Willard eyes. Really like narrowed and stoic. A little closer here. Rikishi does have a little bit of like showing the arch of the nose in some places. Hmm. Fully black eyes for sure. And little dot there for some light. Something like that. Hair is more so just gonna go, you know, loosey-goosey with the tones and the like. That's sort of what we're going for there. Probably shouldn't have gone for like rendering or anything like that, or shading before finished with actually drawing her whole body. We'll figure it out. Every time I draw a shirt collar, I feel like I'm doing something wrong, but like no, they kind of do just look like that. They are just like trapezoids and rectangles sometimes, and you just have to sort of live with that being the world you live in. And sometimes things are just easier or harder to draw, and that's just the way that it is. Both a blessing and a boon in that regard. I never did go back to my Umineko rankings as well, but we'll get there in a second. Which did you prefer between questions and answers? That's a really good question. Huh. I think generally I liked answers more. If only because that was when it felt like it really got down to brass tacks in terms of figuring out, like, narrowing down what my suspicions were in regards to what was actually going on with Umineko, having a lot of things that were actively testing my knowledge and testing my faith in what I believed Umineko was, and a lot of the more clear subversions of the genre and the form happening in Umineko. It's when Umineko becomes a lot more antagonistic to the reader, and I think that's a really interesting change that I thought was a lot of fun to experience. A little lighter on that. I'm getting bogged down in the details here, but, you know, sometimes it's fun to get bogged down in the details. Sometimes getting bogged down in the details while you're drawing can be a nice little break from having to think too much. Rendering can be very relaxing in that regard. It can be stressful in sometimes, but whenever you really get into it, rendering can be very relaxing because you can just sort of focus in and do whatever you're doing and just worry about making it look a little better instead of worrying about actually forming it. I think Answer's intense moments were more intense. It becomes antagonistic through deploying the industrial plant known as Erica. That is definitely part of it, yeah. I really like what Erica represents in the text, mostly just because, obviously, I really, really like Erica. But it's again, very... I liked Erica kind of from the jump, because she's this very strong contrast to the more emotional side of Umineko that you've gotten used to seeing throughout the entire text. Battler is a very, very, very atypical detective character. He's very emotionally motivated. He's very not really like good at the whole deduction thing a lot of the time. He just gets very bogged down in like not wanting to accept certain answers as the truth because they conflict with his perception of reality or his perception of like who he thinks certain people are. His like big conflict in the beginning of the text is, you know, not wanting to believe in magic, but also not wanting to believe that any of his family members could be capable of being the killer, right? And so it's really compelling to see someone like that be the detective when usually you're used to more of an Erica type detective who is very emotionally detached from everything that's going on, and is very, like, astute in her deductions, sees things that you aren't really inclined to see, whereas with Battler, part of what makes him so charming is the fact that you're on the same page as him, which isn't really the case with a lot of mystery novel detectives and the like. And I think that's really interesting to see. And so, you know, finally having him come into direct contact with essentially like the character that he is supposed to be according to genre conventions, and to have that character just be like kind of deplorable given the context in which she's deployed is a really, really interesting way to frame things. The way I looked at it whenever I was reading it was like, it was kind of an interrogation to the reader of like, what kind of story do you think Umineko is? Like, if it's a mystery story, like, is this the kind of mystery that you were envisioning? Is this the kind of mystery that you want it to be? And if so, like, do you agree with what Erica is doing? It's not... I think it can come across as very aggressive and combative on a first-time read, as almost like in a mocking sort of way. Which it's definitely meant to be. It is meant to be this massive shift in the status quo that is kind of uncomfortable in a lot of ways. But I think it's a very interesting place for Umineko to go, especially when it seems like there are a lot of times in Umineko where it feels like, well, I feel like we've kind of done everything that we can do right now, haven't we? And so it's surprising to me that Umineko continues to go down unexpected routes and keep you guessing even when it's playing things relatively straight. In your opinion, who's the hottest Chiester sister? Or 10. I will not be taking further comment on this. I think we're probably just going to do half body on this one. I feel like we spent quite a lot of time here. You can tell them apart? Yeah, their hair colors are CMYK. Which is a fun little thing. It was neat to notice. There we go. You know, something along these lines. What we're working with here. Arms are looking a little iffy, but what can you do? Good enough for government work, I suppose. The fact that you had an option where you could constantly revive and kill the characters was a nice touch, especially since it lets you find out about the fucking bombs incident super early by using the kill option on Erica. Yeah, that's something interesting. I like that a lot. That's something that I think when I reread Umineko myself, I'll probably take a bit more interest in is like reading the tips and just being more cognizant of like all the extra information that you're being given as you read. Because, you know, obviously if I'm reading alongside Joe, I'm sort of at the whims of when he checks the notes, and, you know, his general pacing when it comes to stuff like that. You know. But I think it'd be interesting. A lot of the time, if I had questions regarding the notes, I would go to Lurf and I would ask them if they could give something to me. If I needed a reference for a character or anything like that, I would 100% go to Lurf and be like, Lurf, please, I don't want to get spoiled. Can you show me what Leon looks like in the original art, please? Thank you. A lot of my discussions actually in episode 7 were entirely through DMs with Lurf, because it was about a lot of more complex discussions regarding like what Leon represents in terms of how Umineko portrays gender in a lot of ways, which I think is really, really interesting. I think it's really cool that the quote-unquote like ideal fragment where Leon comes from is this universe where Sayo is fully accepted. Sayo is welcomed as not just, you know, a member of the Ushiromiya family, but the up-and-coming next head of the Ushiromiya family. And in that world, they are explicitly androgynous. There's, you know, you can speculate as to whether, like, to what degree their androgyny would be accepted by the family, or how exactly it's portrayed, but I think it's really interesting that this, like, quote-unquote ideal fragment that is, like, a miracle that it even exists, has a character whose gender is never explicitly stated. Almost as if this idea of, like, existing without a gender in a society that is so strongly founded upon understanding people through the lens of sex and gender is itself some idealized miracle that couldn't occur in most realities. I thought that was really, really interesting. I think the gender demons are funny. The gender demons are funny. I do like the gender demons quite a lot. Zapar and Furfur. That's another. Someone asked earlier who was my favorite character to voice act. Zapar was a lot of fun to voice act as well. I from what I understand, Mouse had a lot of the engineering behind the scenes to make sure that she and I got to voice act Zapar and Furfur, and I think that paid off quite well. Kinza was a lot of fun to voice act as well, which I think paid off really well with the Happy Halloween scene. I feel like I did a pretty good job there. It was a lot of fun. I don't know if I would ever be confident enough to pursue voice acting as like a full-on like profession. But I think it would be fun to explore for like side projects or just as a hobby in the same way that I do with streaming, you know? And if it is something that's successful and allows me to expand my horizons in terms of like what I pursue professionally, hey, that'd be really cool. It was a lot of fun. Kenzo's impeccable. Thank you. Yeah, he was a lot of fun to voice, even if generally as a character he's kind of deplorable in a lot of ways, which is a little rough. But, you know, what are you gonna do? The way, I think... I don't remember exactly when it was, but there was, at a certain point, like, I realized, like, what Umineko's quote-unquote psyop was in regards to viewing everyone with love and, like, evil people don't exist. I think that was somewhere in the middle of episode 6, if I'm not mistaken. And that was where I started to make a lot of my really large-scale realizations in regards to like where Umineko was going and what it was doing with a lot of its characters. Sudden brainworm I want to put into reality. Can Knight Sakutara get an iPad? You want to blind him? Just to give him that rugged hero look? Alright. Hold on. I guess I'll scar my boy. Hold on. Okay. Yes, I will give him an eye patch, however. Chuny medical eye patch instead. He's so cool. He's so cool. This is the Sakutaro who survived his fight with the Black Witch. Uryu. Rena Ryugu. He thinks his eye has special powers. The hardened lion hunter. The genius little touches of stitching being fabric stitching is peak. Thank you. I thought it was inspired. Alright, I have to remember my mental image of Rena Ryugu real quick. Which is to say I need to look up Rena and then see if it aligns. Well, alright, Lurf. I have to do it live. Lurf. Lurf, help. Help, I don't want to get spoiled on Higurashi. I need you to look up Rena for me. Help. Help me, please. Please. I need help. I am adrift in a sea of fragments, and I don't want to get spoiled. Help me. What if you draw her first and then look her up? Hold on. I will... How do I set my pen down in the same exact spot every single time I set it down. It's right here, directly to the right, where my arm rests. On the armrest. It's right there. How do I lose it every time? Alright, let me see if I can remember what Rena looks like, because she's got kind of like a... I'm gonna do more of a, like chibi. I don't know why I'm going for this expression, but you know what? We'll see where it leads us. No, I don't like these eyes for Rena. I don't know what expression I'm trying to go for here. I do, however, want her in her silly little hat, because Ryukishi gives his silliest hats to his strongest soldiers. This doesn't look like her. It doesn't feel right. Where is her silly hat? This isn't right. Something is wrong. Where is Rena Ryugu? Thank you. Alright, it was the hair length that wasn't right. It was the hair length that wasn't right. Here she is. Everyone say hello to my good friend Rena Ryugu, who has never done... Where is she? Rena? There she is. Who has never done anything wrong, nor will she ever do anything wrong, ever. Rena cannot sin because she exists in... Oh my god, I tore his head off again. Fuck. She exists in a world without Sin. Everyone say hi to Rena. Clap and cheer now or I'll blow up the fucking building. Omochikairi. Ow. How do I scroll up? I forgot how to scroll up. There we go. I set it down in the same spot. It's in the same spot it's always in. I don't know what this angle is that I've started at, but you know what? We're going to commit to it, because why not? The hat is very important to me. Needs to be a little lower. Oh. There we go. Howdy, Kaylee. Welcome, welcome. Not quite right. Not right about that. She looks like if Angie got into MLP. It's an interesting description for Retta. I feel like we're spiritually connected, so this will make sense in just a moment. You just have to trust me on this one. You have to trust me. She would like trash corn. She would. I think. I would trust her. That's not true. She would probably have better standards when it comes to food. Big ol' ribbon. I do love the little, like, wristbands Rikishi seems to give everyone for seemingly no reason. Looks like you're giving her a turkey face just a bit. Hold on. Does that help? It's a banger. Her big puffy sleeves are very important to me. If you thought the shit that I was saying during Umineko was crazy, you people aren't ready to hear my fucking Higurashi theories, because the shit that I'm saying in there, let me tell you, I know I'm right about it because I'm just that good, but I've got some crazy shit. That's for damn sure. I'll share with you the theory that I shared with Umiful earlier. So Higu 3 speculation. There is a character who I'm sure many people are familiar with because she looks exactly like fucking Burn Castell. Her name is Rika. Let me see if I can draw her real quick. She has these eyes where she looks fucking, like, directly at you. Like so. I'm drawing her entirely from memory. Hold on. There's like a little bow here. Little suspenders. All right, all things considered, for being a very fast Rika, Lurf, how would you rate this in terms of, like, on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of accuracy to what Rika looks like? This is exactly what she looks like. All right, and then I'm gonna give her, hold on, what I know she needs. Let me look up a logo real quick. Okay, alright. It's gonna be hard to draw at this size. There we go. And she has a little white claw. So here's my theory about Rika. Again, Higu 3 speculation. I think Rika is a lot older than she appears to be. There are 5 people in the main cast of Higurashi. There is our point of view character Keiichi. There is tomboyish. I don't know what else. Well, club president would be a good way to describe it. Tomboyish club president Mion Sonozaki. There is best character in all of fiction ever created. Really, just the goat of not only When They Cry, but all fiction entirely. Rena Ryugu, the smartest, most emotionally intelligent, most perceptive, coolest, cutest, best character ever. Rena Ryugu. And then there is scourge upon this earth and the most victimized creature in existence, Sadako. I don't remember her last name. And then there is this creature, Rika Furude, whose name you might realize sounds a little familiar. Anyway, Rika's whole deal is that Satoko Hojo, thank you. Satoko and Rika are the younger of the five in the group. The ages aren't ever explicitly stated, but Lurf and I have come to a general consensus that Mion, Rena, and Keiichi are all in the 16, 17, 18 range. Based on Mion and Keiichi being stated to be the same age, and Mion is graduating this year, likely from high school in general to go to university. And Rena is stated to be 1 year younger than Keiichi, but turning the same age as him soon. And the ages for Rena and Sadako are never stated, but generally they're somewhere in like the 13, 14 range, I think. Like, in Higurashi, all of the kids go to like a mixed grade school, and Sadako and Rika are in the same classes as Keiichi, Mion, and Rena. So they're like somewhere in like the middle school-ish range. And so my belief is that this girl right here, Rika Furude, is a lot older than she lets on. She's very silent a lot of times. She's very stoic. She seems completely aware of the like charm she has as a little kid and weaponizes it frequently. And there's also just there are two big things now. It used to just be one thing that was guiding my suspicion, but, well, three things. One, she talks to Keiichi a lot in episode 2 in a way that makes her seem a lot more socially savvy than she lets on. She knows a lot more than she is willing to let Keiichi know she knows. And appears to have a lot more influence than anyone else realizes in that regard. So that's the one thing, is she has some conversations with Keiichi in episode 2 that really make me feel like maybe there's more going on there. In that same episode, I started to realize that whenever Rika is mentioned in regards to like others in the town, there's a lot of talk about the older people in the village idolizing her and worshiping her, or like treating her with some amount of reverence. And this is because she is the daughter of a now deceased shrine priest, and is herself a priestess who conducts the like holy ceremony during Watanagashi, which is this yearly festival in Hinamizawa, the city in which it takes place. So she is a shrine maiden who is revered highly by the older people specifically. Keiichi generally seems to think it's like she's treated like the town daughter, because it's the older people that tend to dote on her. And then 3 is just a general suspicion based on Ryukishi's tendency to play with very common anime tropes a lot of the time. And my suspicion with Rika is that she's going to be more of like a humanized, like attempt to like a down-to-earth portrayal of the like 1,000-year-old lolly trope. Where my suspicion, generally, my theory regarding Rika is that she is a lot older than she lets on, because maybe she just had some sort of growth instability or some birth defect, something along those lines, some sort of medical condition which has caused her not to go through puberty and physically develop as she ages. And in the town of Hinamizawa, that is very religious, very tied to ceremony and tradition, having the daughter of a shrine priest appear to be eternally youthful might be seen as some kind of blessing from Oyashira, the local god. And so that might be why the older people in the village treat her with some degree of reverence, because she's been alive for, my estimation, I don't know, like she might be in like her 30s or something like that, or 20s, I don't know. But the point being that she has been very young, or appeared to be very young, for a long enough time that people take notice of that and treat her with some level of reverence as a result of that. This is my like current big theory in Umineko. Do you know Oyashiro-sama? Yes, Hinamizawa. Don't do this to me live. You can't fucking do this to me live. Anyway, that's like my big theory regarding Higurashi right now, is that Rika is a lot older than she lets on. And that is my reasoning for thinking so. And so it has made reading Higurashi very funny, because there's a scene in episode 2 where Keiichi is really scared, and she's explaining stuff to him using like little baby, like, oh, a cat wandered in and he made an oopsie, and the cat was scared that people were going to get mad at him about the oopsie. And Keiichi interprets it as like, oh, she's young, this is how she's choosing to portray the situation in her mind. And I'm now viewing it from the perspective of Rika in her 30s having to pretend to be a child lest she invoke the ire of the entire town, or alternatively a god, being like, oh fuck, okay, this guy's terrified, this guy's so fucking scared out of his mind, this kid's freaking out, how do I calm him down? Okay, so there's this cat and it wandered into a place that it's not supposed to go, meep. Okay, he seems to be calming down. I think that should work. Let's just keep going with this. Like, just fucking babying him the entire time. The idea of this woman just having to pretend to be a child with fucking baby talk, meep, meepa, all the time is hilarious to me. The puberty not kicking in thing sounds convenient until I realized that my sibling knew someone who had that exact same condition. Yeah, and I think generally Rikishi likes to look at common tropes or stuff like that from the lens of like, if I were to find some realistic explanation, would I be able to make a character who's more humanized from that lens? Could I play with this idea in a way that is both familiar and novel and realistic all in one? And so I'm really interested to see when I will be proven right, because I have to assume that I'm right, because if I'm wrong, I'm insane. It's sort of this middle ground of like, I'm looking at what ostensibly could be like a 13-year-old who just does baby speak and being like, what are you doing here? Get a job. Shouldn't you be at home like pounding a couple fucking brewskis watching the game? What are you doing here? Go home. Why are you in middle school right now? Don't you have better things to do? Where's your like salary? What's going on here? So, in my mind, Rika drinks White Claw. When did our music stop? Oh, we reached the end of the playlist. That's when. Let's go for Lirim. Anyway, that's this Rena done with a little bonus Rika on the side. Who I'm not gonna lie, I'm upsettingly proud of this quick little Rika that I drew, which is kind of how it goes whenever you're drawing. Sometimes you'll spend a long time drawing something like this, and then you'll spend like 10 seconds sketching out a little chibi Rika, and sometimes that's the one you like more, and there's nothing you can do about it. You know? It looks like she's watching Rena. She's getting her enrichment. She's getting her enrichment. Listen, it's a small town, there's nothing going on, she has to pretend to be like 12 at all times. Let her enjoy one thing in life. She hangs out with the kids because they're fucking crazy. She really does, yeah. Does wide jade head using green line art on a black background sound doable? I need to keep my brand fresh. We'll do that, and then also I think we got another redeem a little bit ago. Shiroya Murana in the Higurashi style looking confused. I'll see what I can do, Kaylee. Thank you very much for the redeem. Thank you very much, everyone. Which Umineko character did your opinion of change the most over the course of the story? Huh. Probably Genji, I want to say. Genji, for the longest time, felt like kind of a nothing character to me in a lot of ways. He's just sort of like a background character in a lot of regards. And, like, I do like Renove, and having him as an extension of Genji is really interesting. But what he does in Episode 7, what him and Kumasawa do in Episode 7, with whenever Sayo solves the epitaph, and they force her to put on Beatrice's dress and a wig and go in front of Kinzo, is honestly, I think, one of the most disgusting, deplorable things done by anyone in all of Umineko. It is one of the cruelest, most inconsiderate actions anyone in the entire story ever takes, and it's especially terrible because it is from the two people who have essentially become Sayo's surrogate parents, who she has, like, come to trust as, like, the only people who are willing to sort of, like, care for her, who saved her life, who have been raising her, who have been, like, helping her through her extremely troubled upbringing. And the two people that she trusts most in the world force her to put on the dress of her mother, of her grandmother, and go before her father without telling her any of this, so that he can have one last moment of peace before he dies right in front of her. It is one of the most gut-wrenching, disgusting, sickening things perpetrated by anyone in the entire story. It is a complete and utter disregard for Sayo's autonomy, feelings, anything. 100%. It is despicable. And, like, from that moment forward, like, my opinion of Genji and Kumasawa completely tanked, and it could not under any circumstances recover. It was just over right then and there. Like, I can understand maybe why they would do something like that. But understanding it does not in any way excuse it at all. It is absolutely unfathomably disgusting that they would do that to her. I think I sketched these in gray liner. There I did. Okay, yeah. There we go. A little darker now. Perfect. Let's see. At least Nanjo had some pushback despite being his Nazi buddy. That's, yeah. Sayo finding out that she's 75% Kinzo, transgender, has got crush on all her cousins, and is an Italian, and one day must have been fucking gut-wrenching. Yeah, there's a lot going on in Sayo's life that just cascades into ruin, all because of that one day. It is fucking awful. It's so bad, man. And she's Italian? Oh, no. Oh, no. I'm still really happy with this little Rico holding a White Claw. All right, we've been live for 2 hours, so we're going to take a quick break. During the break, I'm going to skim for some questions, because I know I've probably missed a lot of them. It's a little hard to focus between drawing and answering questions, especially at the speed chat was going earlier. So if you have some questions for me, like I said, feel free to please ask them again. If I miss them, ask them again. So long as you're not spamming them in chat, I will absolutely get to them. I love talking about Umineko. I really want to share my thoughts, and I want to be able to share, my thoughts on questions that you folks have. So I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to take 5 minutes, get some water, stretch, walk around a little. I'll be back, and then we'll get right back to these next two sketch requests that we have. So See you in a few.
Won't you step with me, dance with me, feel alright. I feel good on you, alright. Make a groove all night. Close your eyes, come to me. Close your
I'm back. Hello. let's see. Wanted to ask about how the perception of Rudolph, Kyrie, and Battler changed from the beginning to the end of the story. How do you feel about them? Kyrie's definitely changes quite a lot, especially in the episode 7 Tea Party, where you're shown a reality where her and her and Rudolph are like mostly responsible. Shows her to be just like a very psychopathic, unfeeling kind of person, and Rudolph to be a lot more like cruel and almost capitulating to her in a way throughout the entire sequence of events, mostly because she's threatening Battler's life throughout it all. So theoretically, Kyrie and Rudolph's stocks should plummet pretty hard throughout the course of Umineko. However, only Rudolph's stocks have plummeted for me, really. The realization that Rudolph was two-timing Asumu the entire time, pretty much, and then he swapped the babies, is just, like, comic book levels of, like, absurdity and, like, what the fuck are you doing? You've put yourself in such a terrible situation, and entirely because you've been selfish and uncaring towards someone. Like, it is just, like, so unbelievably cruel, the stuff that he does, and it's barely touched upon. It's absolutely insane. He just is just a shady motherfucker all around. And then Kyrie, you are able to pick up a lot on her more psychopathic tendencies, and I do mean that in more of like a clinical sense, not in like, oh, how scary type of sense of like, she's not very empathetic to others, she's very cold, she's very logical, that sort of thing, which I don't think is an entirely 100% accurate portrayal of her. I do think that everything we see in the episode 7 Tea Party is very subject to scrutiny for two reasons. One, we know that Burns says it's not necessarily the truth, even though there's the little, like, cheeky fucking, that this is the truth isn't necessarily the case. That's a whole thing in and of itself. But I knew not to take it at face value because Burn is a motherfucker. Burn Castell does not wish the best for Angie Ushiromiya, and so anything that she shows Angie comes through the lens of, like, how is she going to use this to harm Angie in some way. And so I think having this portrayal of her parents, and eventually of Battler, that paints them in a purely psychotic, sadistic light is not, you don't really want to take that at face value. There's a lot going on there that's definitely manipulative on Burns' side. And especially coming from Higurashi 1, reading episode 7 Tea Party, I'm finding a lot of those same... it felt like Ryukishi had really returned to his wheelhouse in terms of the way he writes horror, and the way he writes someone who is enacting horror to be this unfeeling, unknowable kind of entity that is just scary because there's no way to properly understand or connect with them. So as much as, like, I probably realistically should like Kyrie less now that I'm finished with Umineko, I'm less inclined to really feel that bad about her, because I also see a lot of sympathetic moments towards her. Like, I had that big thing in episode 4 where I talked about how I think her phone call with Battler in episode 4 is something along the lines of, like, her understanding, like, you're my son, you will try to figure this out, you'll try to be more empathetic, you are far more empathetic than I am, don't do it. You are up against a witch. Don't even try to think about this and understand them. If you do, you'll die. Fun fact about Burns' Red Truth. Negatives come at the tail end of a Japanese sentence, so a direct English translation would be similar to, this is the truth, not. I see. Interesting. To be fair, she was tricking him there. Was she? Oh yeah, no, because that's what happens in what episode 7 Tea Party is what happens in episode 4, right? Is it? Is that the implication? Interesting. That's one of the things that I'm interested to go through whenever I read Umineko 2, which is just like mapping out rather what exactly is happening in each episode, and figuring out all of the underlying events of like what do the magical things represent, what's actually happening here. Lurf talked to me yesterday about their interpretation of episode 2, and what's going on there, and it was an immaculate interpretation of the text that I think is really, really interesting. I most certainly could not do it justice. 2, I'm really excited to reread. I really enjoyed 2 on the first go around, because it has a lot of like directly stating the thesis of Umineko in that it's about love, it's about connection, it's about how people perceive love and connection, and how that affects their interactions with other people. I think that's really, really interesting. Keep it on the down low. I plan to have a podcast episode about it. I can't wait for that episode. That's going to be really good. Make sure you tune in for that. I really like 2. There are a couple places, I was talking with Lurf about this. I talk with Lurf about a lot of stuff, so I'm probably going to preface a lot of what I'm saying with that. I was talking with Lurf about how there are a couple of places in Umineko where I feel like I just sort of put in a cheat code and skipped directly to Umineko 2 on some of my understanding of the text. And I think the biggest like part of Umineko 2 that I got early was understanding Erika as this extremely flawed, nuanced character rather than the straightforward villain she is very much portrayed to be. I don't know what it was. I think it was maybe in episode 5 and 6, I lost any ability to really keep track of the mystery and the mechanics. And so I sort of started to rely more on character analysis as my way of grounding myself in the text. And Erika is the new character, she's the main focus, and so I really dialed in super hard on trying to understand what was going on with Erika, why she was acting the way that she was, and as a result, she ended up becoming my favorite character, because there's a lot going on there that's tightly contained in just those 2 episodes that she's in. And yes, she's in 8, but in more of like a lesser role. In 5 and 6, she is very much the focus, and she gets a lot of development that I think goes over a lot of people's heads when they're reading 5 and 6, because she's in this villainous, like, fucking Erika, I hate her so much, get her off the screen immediately kind of realm. And I loved seeing her, so I wasn't really in that mindset. I was really, really excited every time she was on screen, because it meant that she might do something a little off-kilter that I got to analyze a little more. My takeaway from Erika was, rather than being someone who is, like, villainous for the sake of sadism, she is someone who is just constantly gotten a raw deal in pretty much every single aspect of her life, to the point where the only way that she can scrape some kind of dignity or enjoyment from the things she's forced to do by Bernkastel is to take pleasure in the pain she is forced to cause. Even if it causes her some degree of pain, she just has to try and spin it in such a way that she is the one who gets to come out on top somehow, because if she can't at least have a good time, if she can't at least like what she's doing, she can at least fucking win and get a win under her belt and have something that she can have. And that has led to my interpretation of her as someone who is first and foremost just a people pleaser, because the approval of others is the only thing that she really has to rely on. I feel like linchpin in saying that is her catchphrase is an appeal to the audience for approval. What do you think, everyone? Is her not just asking, what do you think? It is the expectation of praise. She's just pulled off some immaculate feat, and she is essentially turning, to the audience, expecting them to applaud, right? Everything that she does is for her master, so she is very servile in the sense that it is really all she has. So when I view her through the lens of someone who needs to have the approval of others, or needs to play to what people expect in order to fulfill her role in that sense, I view a lot of her actions with a lot of I mean, love is really the only way that I can put it. Especially like the ending of episode 6, whenever Byrne abandons her and she's seemingly alone, and she chooses to still play the villain and be gunned down in the end. That, to me, I view that more as like, it's what the audience wants, it's what the audience expects, and she would rather play to the crowd than go against their expectations and risk disapproval at that point. Even if it's not what she wants, even if she doesn't want to be the villain anymore, it's who she thinks she has to be in that moment. And so, if she has to do it, she's gonna go all the way. I really love Erica, man. Erica's really, really, really good. Even post Umineko, he's still... Brother, that's what it's all about! That's what it's all about! This is what I'm here for. I'm curious, what did you think of the escape / Kraus versus Goat part? Do you think it's there's some meaning, or is it just a fun distraction played by the magic side? It was one of the most fun but also out-of-pocket scenes for me. That's in a hard place, because it's definitely being played for comic relief. That's 100% what's going on. I mean, you don't have the fucking loser flag, this is common knowledge in the world of boxing, Kraus counter fight, where Kraus only wins because the other side sucks so bad that it makes him stronger. You don't have a scene like that. Every time Ryukishi does math, it's for a punchline. That's just how it works, right? And so it's definitely working as comic relief. As to what that actually represents in the physical reality of episode 4, I'm uncertain. That's one of the things that I'm really interested to examine whenever I go to Umineko 2 and start rereading it. So I'm really interested to see scenes like that and ask myself, is there a way that I can frame this as if, like, it's really happening? Do you have any interest in the Umineko manga? Episodes 7 and 8 differences, standout panels, etc. I do. I do plan on reading the manga and Confessions at some point. I do think having a full explanation of the stuff that Sayo says she doesn't want to talk about, and having this more explicit explanation of the truth of what happened before the massacre, does go a little bit against the spirit and the themes of Umineko, but I mean, for lack of, like, appealing to, I don't know, like, my education or something like this, as someone who cares very deeply about literature and cares very deeply about literary analysis as an art form, disregarding canon because it doesn't align with my perception of the text is the closest you can come to an invalid reading of the text, if ever there was one. There are a lot of ways to read a text and to come up with valid assertions regarding that text. That's the thing that I love about literary analysis, is that many people can look at the same exact text and come away with so many different interpretations, and all of them, so long as they are not refuted by the text, are correct ways of viewing that text. I love that about literary analysis. It plays with the, I guess, nature of truth and objectivity in a very interesting, fun way that I think a lot of people don't recognize, because I think in a more traditional school setting, you're kind of taught that analyzing literature is about finding the answer. You look at it certain ways and you figure out what the solution is to the book, when in reality, there isn't a solution, it is your solution. The reason you cite your sources is because you have to come up with your solution and you have to prove your answer, right? You can't just say something, it has to be supported by the text. I love analyzing literature for that. And so even though I'm looking at something like the Confessions in Umineko and saying, I think that's contrary to the larger themes regarding, you know, literary analysis in terms of finding your own truth and having that be the truth that matters most because you're the one that has to live with it, I still have to look at it as this is a legitimate canon part of the text, and if I disregard it because of personal feelings, my reading of the text is potentially invalid. And that's the only real way for a reading of the text to become invalid, in my opinion, is to disregard the text because it goes against what you're thinking. Because if the text goes against what you're thinking, that means you need to reevaluate your thinking, because you are wrong. Or possibly you have the wrong perception of what the text is saying. It could be that rather than going against what you're thinking, it just appears to be the case, and you could reinterpret it in a certain way that makes it align more with your thinking. But either way, refusing to consider part of the text invalidates a reading, in my opinion. You have to consider the whole text. That doesn't mean you have to touch on everything. You don't need to go about every single little detail and how it relates to proving your point and like this, and this, and have a full thread of every single letter of the text. But you need to touch upon the entirety of it. You cannot have gaping holes in your analysis that leave room for invalidation of your perspective. Your perspective needs to be grounded in the text and proven by the text. And most importantly, not disproven by the text. Which is a lot of words to say that you just need to cite your fucking sources. That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it sort of spiraled from there, but I mean, that's what happens when you're talking about Umineko. But yeah, I'm interested to see what happens in the reality of a lot of those magic scenes. So good question. Thank you. Stamp of approval for Confessions from Kokonis. Nice. Oh no, that was a different question about Amio. Umanga's got an exclusive chapter regarding Sayo and her motivations. It's on the Internet Archive. Ooh. I was very surprised that the new scenes in episode 7 weren't in the VN because after reading them to me, they feel like necessary scenes. Interesting. How would you rate the siblings, Kraus, Ava, Rudolph, and Rosa as characters? It's a little difficult to rank them because it's... in terms of like how interesting are they when they're on screen and how much am I like excited to analyze them and look into them more and see what's going on with them. I think Rosa is one of the most interesting characters. I think generally it would go Rosa, Ava, Rudolph, Kraus. Rosa is a character who is obviously deplorable. Obviously you hate her because she's a child abuser. But it is also kind of impossible not to feel sympathy for her in the sense that she has never in her entire life had a moment where she has got to have like say in who she is and what she does. Who she is has always been defined by circumstances outside of her control. She is abused by her family as she is growing up. When she finally goes out on her own, she gets pregnant very young and now is defined as being a mother to a child that she didn't necessarily want, and also to a father that didn't want to raise that child as well. And so who she is just defined by her circumstances. She has never had a chance to actually explore her own autonomy in that sense. And so yes, it's terrible that she neglects Maria. Yes, it's terrible that she beats Maria and that she throws these temper tantrums. But ultimately, it's because she never got to actually grow up. She's still a child. She throws temper tantrums because she never got to learn how to be an adult. She never had an outlet for all of the abuse that was cast on her. So she's just, I mean, a bomb waiting to go off. And none of it is really her fault, and there's nothing she can do short of upending every single system that led to her being who she is that could fix her. She's just completely damned by her circumstances. And any attempt at expressing personal autonomy in the place that she is in her life comes across as despicable, you know, because she's abandoning Maria, who is her responsibility. There's no getting around that. That's her responsibility, is raising Maria. But how is she supposed to raise a child when she never grew up herself? You know? It's hard to talk about Rosa because every time you talk about, like, humanizing her, it comes with the caveat of, like, I always have to backpedal and say, like, but she's still a child abuser and she still fucking sucks and she's still terrible. Like, those two things have to coexist, and it's difficult to have that kind of conversation in a less nuanced context, like an online context. You know, that's... Rosa is very, very interesting to me in that regard. Ava is definitely, like, where a lot of the themes regarding my feminist reading of Umineko culminate. in regards to just like she's where the subtext of the more feminist themes of Umineko just become text. When you learn about her backstory in the opening of episode 3, she is a woman who is highly educated, highly capable, highly athletic. She is this all-star, all-rounder who is incredibly qualified to be the head of the Ushiramiya family, but unfortunately, because the thing that she desires is this more patriarchal form of power, she can never attain it, and it ruins her life. The system that she desires control over does not concern itself with her at all. What she desires is something that does not care for her in the slightest. And so any attempt she makes at truly taking control of her circumstances or finding power in the system that has kept her down her entire life is ultimately meaningless, because her perception of beating the system is just becoming the person who is on top of it temporarily. And fuck everyone else, I had to earn my keep. You have to earn yours too. So she's really interesting in that regard. And then I don't have as much to say about Kraus and Rudolph. Rudolph I've already talked about, and Kraus, I feel like Kraus is another person who has kind of just been ruined by the privilege that his lifestyle has afforded him. He has always been the youngest of the oldest of the siblings. He has always been the next head of the Ushiramiya family. He has always been someone who has had success as an expectation of his very existence. And so, again, like with most of the Ushiramiya siblings, he hasn't been forced to grow up and to experience life. And so he has a lot of charisma, but he's lacking in intelligence. He's lacking in the capabilities that Ava worked so hard to develop in herself. And so that's why, even though he's very good at manipulating people, he's very good at talking his way out of situations, he's very good in social circumstances, he's just not a very intelligent person when it comes to making his bets and having the confidence to follow through on them, which gets played a lot for laughs with like the moon tourism thing and his general perception as far as like how the community views him. But he's still tragic in that same way, just not as developed. He feels more secondary to the development of Natsuhi in a lot of ways. Is the manga strictly part of the text? The parts with substantial changes were written later after pushback from readers on how deliberately vague a lot of the VN was. It feels to me like its own thing. Yes and no. No, it's not part of the text in the sense that you're right. If someone were to just read Umineko, they could consider that to be a fully formed text in and of itself. But also no, in that the author, Ryakishi, has stated this is not an interpretation of the text. This is the answer. And while death of the author is a concept you do have to take, consider with some merit, there's also the word of God that you need to consider. And if the author releases an official adaptation of his text and says, this is not an interpretation of the original, this is what is canon to the original, like it or not, that's what it is. That is canon. Right? And so you need to regard it as such. There are degrees to this. Like if a certain hack fantasy author were to go on Twitter and start posting a bunch of random bullshit that doesn't appear in any of the books, maybe you can regard that a little less. But in the context of the Umineko manga, I find it very hard to believe that I could reasonably disregard the manga in my reading of the text when it is so explicitly meant to be the canon portrayal of the events of the novel. What do you think would have transpired in episode 7 Tea Party if Kyrie didn't start blasting? Someone would have started blasting. I think Joe is right, and Kyrie is right in that sense, that, like, as soon as the guns came out, everyone there was dead. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is simply too volatile of a situation for anyone to survive outside of just whoever is left alive when the shooting stops. It is just a situation that was just far too dire. for anyone to make it out reasonably. As soon as the guns came out, no one was making it out. That was it. Plain and simple. It is down to one faction left alive. That's it. What about explanations said in interviews for XYZ unexplained plot feature? Is that something to consider over your own interpretation of the plot feature? That's where we start to get into the gray area. Because then that's just what the author says. Then that could be considered like, oh, that's their interpretation of the text. It's not a cut and dry objective thing, like with a lot of... that's just how literary analysis is, unfortunately. But, you know, there are a lot of good things that come from that as well. I think a lot of the hemming and hawing about what is and isn't canon to the text and what do you need to consider for an objective interpretation of the text comes from this mindset of not really understanding literary analysis as a more subjective thought exercise. And so you need to sort of draw your own lines in regards to what you think invalidates or validates a reading of the text. So when I say that I think I need to consider all of the text, otherwise my reading is invalid, that's me, someone who is like, quote unquote, traditionally or classically trained in literary analysis, coming at that from an academic perspective. I think that if there are like XYZ circumstances in regards to the framing of the new information, that is enough for me to consider it to be central to a valid interpretation of the text, right? But it's more so about finding what you can be willing to abide. And when you're discussing it with someone else, discussing it and finding a midpoint, a point of common consensus between you and each other. There is no objective, this is the line for what is and isn't canon regarding what the author says. That's why we have concepts like the Word of God and death of the author, because they are different ways of viewing a text that allow you to give shorthand for how you're considering the text in a variety of different ways, right? Death of the author doesn't mean what the author said can get fucked. I get to choose what the text means entirely. What that means is I am viewing the text purely from the text itself. I am just looking, what does it say in the book? No outside information, a completely intra-textual examination, right? Whereas someone who's not considering death of the author will take outside influences such as what was going on historically when this was being written, what was the author saying about what was being written, what was the author going through what was being written, and become a more intertextual interpretation of it. That's where I draw the line, or at least that's my understanding of those concepts. What's your favorite track in the OST? I said this earlier. Look Back and Prison Strip are my two favorites. The Fishy Aroma vocal version is also really nice. I liked all the vocal tracks that played at the end of some of them, but Look Back makes me feel intensely nostalgic in ways that I can't quite pinpoint. And Prison Strip's just a banger. There's no other way around it. It's just awesome. Prison Strip is really good. I didn't know Dead Angle. I love Dead Angle as much as I did until Joe started playing it whenever he was going through, you know, the end of Umineko himself, whenever he was breeding bits and subs during that final episode. But Dead Angle is really good. I love Birth of a New Witch because it feels like the perfect genre shift to accentuate just how much of a rogue element Erika is within the text, just how much of a shakeup she is to the very foundations of your understanding of Umineko. You're going from pianos and harpsichords and violins to this hip-hop fusion with this classical music that is something entirely both new and familiar. I really, really like Birth of a New Witch. That's another one that I love. What are your thoughts on the use of Toya's amnesia and the collection of coincidences that is Ikuko? I think, personally, I like them. I don't really view Ikuko as this, like, collection of coincidences. I think it's perfectly fine that, like, you could just have an author out there who is, you know, writing... I mean, you're going to have to eventually have someone writing the forgeries, right? And I think it's not so much a coincidence to have that person just be someone unrelated to the events of Rikenjima. And if anything, it might be like way too convenient if Ikuko was someone related to the events of Rikenjima, right? So I don't really have any particular problems with Ikuko just being this unrelated party. And for that reason, I also find it a little hard to believe a lot of the I equals Y theories. Not that I think those readings are necessarily invalid. I haven't really looked into it enough to say whether I believe that to be the case. But like, I don't find it to be a very compelling interpretation of the text, personally. It's not the one that I ascribe to. But I like Ikuko a lot. I like what she represents as this kind of like, not so much a Ryakishi self-insert through and through, but this interpretation of like an author who is creating a work and the ways in which your work is influenced by those people who suddenly come into your life and enriched by those around you, even if, you know, you're writing about something that is wholly unfamiliar to yourself, and how you can struggle a lot with your confidence while writing, and just having someone to bounce ideas back and forth off of can really help enrich your ability to create. It takes two to create a universe and all that stuff. So I like Ikuko a lot. And I think that Battler's Amnesia is done really well, because a lot of the times Amnesia in media I find is a very like temporary, convenient kind of situation that is just like, oh, we need this character to not be like have access to certain information for a time. Whereas in Toya's case, it is like a completely debilitating, crippling mental and physical affliction that completely fundamentally alters who he is as a person and his ability to interface with who he once was. It is a complete disconnect rather than a temporary fog between the two. I love the way that Toya is done. It is a very thoughtful, considerate, tragic take on the Amnesia storyline. It's really, really quite good. Again, Ryakishi is at his best when he is playing with the familiar. And he doesn't so much subvert tropes, although if you look at TV tropes, you'll know that Umineko either subverts a trope or plays it straight. He doesn't so much subvert tropes as he will play with them in a space of asking, here is a trope. How can I find a way to ground it in reality? How can I find a way to explore what it would be like for a realistic human to encounter this in their life? How would someone who is going through this react given realistic stimuli? Which is something that I really admire about his writing. A lot of literature is about referencing the familiar as shorthand for reader understanding. Intertextuality is a massive concept that you have to learn when you're coming to analyze literature. Just the understanding that texts are always in constant communication with one another. And so as an author, being able to leverage tropes as a way of communicating with your audience and having a conversation with them as they read the text and as you write it, having mastery over something like that is very difficult and very impressive. Not that he always pulls it off perfectly, mind you. I have a lot of problems with how George is portrayed, specifically with how he seems to directly upend a lot of how power dynamics are portrayed in Umineko. But most of the time, he's doing pretty well. He hits hand over fist more than he misses. But yeah. What do you think of Natsuhi? She's one of my favorites. She's very layered. She really started as one of my favorites during episode 1, the scene of the Discord letter, with the Discord letter being discovered was so interesting. Then episode 5, she became one of the most layered characters for me. The baby dropping, I think the Kinzo praising delusions are mainly a result of this, and how she views herself on helping Krause keep Kinzo's death a secret was so interesting. I like Natsuhi. I want to analyze her more closely the next time I read Umineko. But generally speaking, I have a lot of sympathy for Natsuhi, and I find it very, very tragic that whenever the episode 7 Tea Party happened and episode 4 happened, she's the first one to die. I think there are a lot of people who I'm really sad, like when I think about the fact that they're just dead and their lives just ended there and they never really got to like fully explore who they could become as a person. And Natsui is one of them because really like getting the backstory that she does in episode 5 and coming to realize that like she didn't really have a lot of choice in becoming who she currently is, but she's coming to understand Kraus and is dealing with the situation of being in Ushiromiya and is taking pride in what she can and is slowly finding her footing in like what it means to be a mother and is finding an ability to like be proud of who she is and where she is in life. And just as she's starting to find stability, Kinzo dies and everything goes out the drain. And it just spirals from there. Then she's constantly dealing with these headaches of keeping things secret, of trying to manage everything, of trying to present this perfect, prideful Ushiromiya family to everyone else while they're all trying to get one up on one another. And she's just caught directly in the middle of all this politicking and social maneuvering. And she can never just find the peace to be a mother and to love her family like she clearly wanted to. And then she's dead. It sucks. It really, really, really makes me feel for her. Um, she is one of like the characters I feel the most sadness for in Umineko. I'm really interested to see on a reread how much of that I just said like tracks, whether I've really missed anything in any regard there, but I really feel so sad for Natsuhi. So good question, thank you. I think D4 is kind of an out of universe version of that. I'm not sure what exactly that is referring to, but I'm sure you'll elaborate in a second message. Hopefully that was a good answer to your question. The long and short of it is that yes, I enjoy Natsuhi quite a lot too. I like almost everyone in Umineko. Where were we? I'm surprised the voice acting isn't praised more. For me, Beatrice and Rosa in episode 2 Tea Party is literally the best VO I've ever heard. I'm really interested to see the voice acting on a reread. That's one of the things that I'm really excited for, is being able to just let the voice acting shine. It was a lot of fun doing the voice acting myself. And doing the voice acting with Joe and doing the voice acting with Mouse. I loved that. But some of those performances very clearly are standout. I think Sayo is the number one character. I just feel an unfathomable sadness at their death. Like, I can't believe it's just 19 years of tragedy and 5 or so minutes of happiness and boom, dead. Yeah, Sayo is just heart-wrenching to think about. There are so many characters in Umineko who get such a raw fucking deal. Again, I had this realization like halfway through the story, that I think you're really like supposed to have. It brings you kind of in line with where Angie is at emotionally, of like, when I'm done with this text, when I figure out the truth or I arrive at whatever truth I decide is good enough, that won't change the fact that all of these people are dead. Like, I had the realization, I think during episode 5 when we were getting the Natsuhi backstory, that like, at the end of the day, like, she died. She's dead. She experienced all of this and she's gone. And though she's still alive in the form of the text and exploring these fragments, she's gone. This is just imagining what could have been for her. But it's not what is. And I think that's really... that's a crazy thing to realize. You sort of get so used to the structure of Umineko, of them constantly dying and being brought back and dying and being brought back. You sort of come to just feel like they will always be there because they can always be brought back again. And then the realization that that's not how it works, like they're really just dead, hits you pretty hard, even though it's such an obvious conclusion. You should know it from the start. And then having that subverted by having Toya be alive, who was once Battler. So Battler is still gone, but in some way Angie still gets to reconnect with someone, anyone who managed to survive in some small way, even if they can't be together because it could kill Toya. I think is such a blessing for the ending of Umineko. That's one of the things that like I'm so happy that that's part of the ending of Umineko. It is tragic, but it is so blissful in a way to me. I really, really like that aspect of it. I feel like a lot of people were viewing the ending of Umineko as like this very extremely tragic, all bitter, little sweet. And I'm seeing a lot of the sweet there, personally. Um, I have a very optimistic view of the end of Umineko. I'm really happy that it shook out the way that it. Okay. Why Jade using green line art? Hold on. I'm in the wrong layer. More D4 music. D4 had no reason going this hard. Fun fact about D4, by the way. All of the music is uploaded on an official playlist from the official D4 Dark Dreams Don't Die channel on YouTube. And every single one of the songs in the OST has director's commentary in the description. So this one is the original soundtrack, David Young, Detective of the Past. This is David's theme. It says, this is one of the songs where we changed the arrangement of the melody from the main theme and used it in important scenes to leave a greater impression. A trial version was created by Technioichi, Access Games, but it was later recomposed and recorded by Manyo, which became the final version. All of them have a sentence or two like that, just talking about, you know, the development of the track or where it's used. I'm gonna go to this one. So, theme of D4. So this one says, used in many different scenes, this is D4's theme song with its unforgettable melody. Since it is such an important song, there was more passion and love put into it than any other. Manyo composed it, while Technoichi, Access Games, handled the drums. This is the only song that was the product of a collaboration. I think that's really cool. I love developer commentary so much, and I was really surprised to see that the D4 OST had dev commentary on the YouTube description. That was really cool to find. D4 was a delight. I really, really enjoyed D4. It's a shame that there's only the one episode of it. But I also feel like it's one of those things like Firefly might be a good cultural touchstone where like maybe it's beautiful because it was temporary. D4 ending has like that, to me, the Umineko thing, as I said earlier, where you go, huh, we'll never get to see more of them. Yeah, and in D4 it's a little more tragic because they never really got to like have a resolution. It's just sort of a story that exists and it's nothing but questions because they didn't even get to resolve one full storyline in there. It was a really interesting stream game. I'm glad we got to play it. Let's see if I can remember Jade from memory. I think she's got like one of these going on. Need smaller. Her hair's a little messier, isn't it? I always interpret it as being a little messier. Jeez. God, this theme goes hard. I'm just gonna color these all the way in. God, the cicadas are so loud outside. And then you wanted it wide? Is it... is this what you wanted, Boulder? You wanted it wide? I think maybe 3-4 ratio was enough. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Is this good? Kind of looks like hold on. Kind of looks like one second. Looks like she's a little like Kirby creature. Hold on. Like she's a little Kirby creature, and like here's the. Anyone else seeing that? That's a Waddle Day. That's pretty good, yeah. Alright. Select, invert selection. Hope that's what you're looking for, Boulder. I'm really happy with these. The Sakutaro Knight is very nice. Someone had a question. Did you cover what you think Burncastle and Lambda represent? I did actually. Hold on, let me see if I can find that because I had a pretty big write up. That I wrote on them. 1 second, please. Let me pull it up here. From no, wrong server. Oh, but I don't want to. I'm in the middle of like my big ego search with Umineko, and so I can't lose my place. I can't lose my bookmark. Where's my phone? I'll look it up on my phone. Let me find it. Let me find it. Let me find it. Let me find it. From Jelly. As Lambda. Oh, come on. You can find from Jelly Lambda. Jelly. Wrong Jelly? Discord search function sure is interesting, isn't it? Okay, so here's the Spark Notes version. Or no, I'll see if I can find on this. Oh, this is a long one. Okay, so okay, so while I have a moment to think, let me elaborate on what I think Lambda and Burn are meant to symbolize within the story. These interpretations are based on a logical assumption, on this logical assumption, which is likely to be invalid but has not yet been disproven. Quote, Umineko does not believe evil people exist. Lambda and Burn are evil, therefore Lambda and Burn are not people. While it's very likely that they will be shown to be people with their own thoughts and emotions rather than concepts, it would not technically disprove my analysis. Think of it like a catalyst rather than evidence if that ends up being the case. Now then, Lambda is representative of institutional evil. Institutional evil refers to evils enacted by the systems of society, most notably laws and the justice system. Here's what we know about Lambda. She is the Witch of Certainty. She can declare things with certainty, after which they will essentially be accepted as fact. These statements are not necessarily read. She is a Witch of the Senate. She holds office, which implies a level of formal governmental power. She was the judge during the trial in Episode 5, a trial which was quite obviously crooked and run by a kangaroo court. In essence, I believe that Lambda Delta's certainty refers to laws themselves. Laws are accepted as fact and are enforced as so. They are believed, in most cases, to simply be inevitable, certain aspects of life which are carried out by a governing body should they be disobeyed. Laws are also, notably, inherently flawed. They are agreements which can be ignored, stretched, or revoked altogether. They are a truth of consensus which the government can alter at will if the correct formal precautions do not exist, like, as a completely random example, in a crooked court which has decided the verdict before the trial even began. So when I said Lambda is the government, I wasn't joking. It's just a simplified comedic expression of my more gathered thoughts, which is that she represents institutional evil. And then I went on to talk about Bern Castell as well, if I can find it. This is a bigger one. Let's see. It might be a little further down than I'm thinking. Uh-oh. I'll just search. You know what? I'll just search for Bern. I'll search for Bern. From Jelly, Bern Castell. Okay. The Bern side of this is much less developed, but I'm just glad I have anything at all for these two after 6 chapters of complete whiffs. So, Bern Castell may be representative of a familial evil. Familial evil, I eventually pared this down to tradition. Familial evil refers to evils which are enacted by tradition, legacy, or expectation. It might be more accurate to refer to her as the de facto to Lambda's de jure, which I don't feel like explaining that. It's not really a necessary comparison. I was just trying to be flavorful. Here's what we know about Bern. She's the Witch of Miracles. If there is the smallest possibility that something could be possible, great prose there, she has the ability to make it manifest. In this way, she could be seen as the doubt to Lambda's certainty. If any chance of doubt remains, it becomes the only possibility to be considered until it either becomes true or no longer exists. Her relationship with Erica is that of an abusive parent to their child. Erica is constantly manipulated by Bern in ways which attack her loyalty and cause her to question her very worth as a human being. Erica is always trying to prove her loyalty and devotion to Bern, but Bern views her only as a tool for her desires to manifest. She is constantly working with Lambda in order to accomplish her goals. Though they are sometimes depicted as enemies, it is always a lie. I still kind of believe that to be the case. They are quite literally in bed with one another behind closed doors. I'm not exactly sure how to marry the first of these two other concepts, but the marriage discussion we saw earlier, marriage discussion in this case referring to whenever Lambda and Bern were talking about Erica being arranged to marry Battler, does solidify the latter two for me. She works with Lambda in order to manufacture a marriage for Erica, which exists entirely as a personal power grab, made legitimate by the legally binding power of a governmentally recognized marriage. She expects great things of Erica, not because she holds any confidence or pride in her, but because greatness is what is to be expected of one of her pieces. Erica is beholden to a legacy that cares nothing for her, but will take everything from her if she continues to serve it. So, that's a lot to say what I am now going to summarize in less words. Even thoughts on their toxic year? I know, right? Am I not a scholar of the modern era? So here are the general thoughts pared down to one-sentence summaries. Lambda, the Witch of Certainty, is meant to represent institutions, law, order, justice, government, the structures which society is based on. Bern, the Witch of Miracles, represents tradition, legacy, family, debt, the idea that we owe something to the past which must be carried forward to the future. And then Featherine is in here as well. Featherine, the Witch of Storytelling, represents stories, folk tales, history, gossip, the written and oral traditions which have existed for as long as humans have. It would make sense, then, that Bern would be a disciple of Featherine. Stories are the root of tradition. It also makes sense then, too, that Lambda and Bern are so closely interlinked. The institutions which sustain the world are largely products of tradition or are supported by them. So, that is my large-scale theory that I came up with in the middle of episode 6 for understanding Bern, Lambda, and Featherine, and witches in general as more conceptual entities in Umineko. I don't know whether those interpretations are entirely consistent with their portrayal towards the end of the novel, but it gave me some grounding to actually understand what they could mean. And I think is pretty consistent, at least with how they're portrayed in episodes 5 and 6. So yeah, there's that. Rena as a worm. Yeah, sure. Sure. Why not? I'll go for it, yeah. We'll get that one in there. First, we need to do Shiroya. That's a good one. All right. Let's see. I need to look up Shiroya. Mirana, I believe. Yeah, there she is. Shiroya Mirana. Queen of Shiroya City herself. That one there. The more I look at this, the more it looks like a... like... It looks like it's popping up on my Pip-Boy. You know what I mean? Like this is my little, like, Vault Boy, all my limbs are broken guy. Okay, so this is Shiroya. Lurf, esteemed guest and fellow When We Cry podcast host, I would like to request one Mion Sonozaki, please. I would like to request one crisp PNG of Mion Sonozaki. Thank you very much. If you could be so kind. Thoughts on Gap being Beatrice before losing the name, or Gap in general? To be, I think, honest, I still am unsure how she really manifests, outside of being, like, a childhood OC, not punching down on OCs, of course. Interesting. I don't know. Gap is, shall we say, a gap in my understanding of Umineko as a whole, largely because, when she was introduced in the story, I was taking a shower, and when I came back, I was just sort of like, yeah, I guess Gap is here now. And I didn't actually go back and watch her introduction to get an understanding of what the fuck was going on. So, from my perspective, it was just like, oh, Gap's here now. What the fuck is she wearing? What? Alright, well, you know, she's beating George's ass, so I guess she's cool. So I don't know. I'm not entirely sure how to interpret Gap. Although it was really funny when I was doing my Umi full ego search, that when Gap was introduced, a lot of people were like, huh, Jelly's real quiet about Gap. Ever since Gap showed up, Jelly's been real quiet. I wonder what's going on. Man, Jelly hasn't been saying much since Gap was introduced. I wonder what's there. And then, in reality, it's just because I took a fucking shower. Oh man, Jelly must be cooking something real big for this one. I wonder how his feminist interpretation of the text is gonna grapple with someone like her. Meanwhile, I'm just fucking like, all right, first shampoo, let it soak in, wait like 2 minutes, then wash it off. All right, conditioner now, but only the tips of the hair, only the tips. Don't massage it into your scalp. Thank you very much, Lurf. I think it being the casual outfit is very important. Everyone say hello to Mion Sonozaki. She's also a good friend of mine. Clap and cheer or I'll blow the fucking building up. Friend of the channel, Mion Sonozaki. Woo! Yeah! Yeah! Don't worry about the gun, it's not important. They're similar creatures in my mind. Why is she strapped? Don't worry. I just said don't worry about it. What are you, a fucking cop? Okay, so now, see, the big difference between really the Higurashi and Umineko art style is mostly the size of the eyes, I would say. The eyes are real big old peepers in Higurashi, which is important. Something to consider, and make sure that you continue to consider it going forward. So we gotta give Shiroya City Mayor. I don't know why I said those all in like the wrong order. The mayor of Shiroya City, the proper ocular treatment here. Let's do our best, shall we? God, the fucking... Here's the thing that I gotta tell you. The cicadas are loud as fuck. Ever since I've started reading Higurashi, I have been unable to not notice how loud the cicadas are every single day of this entire summer. Morning and night. They're always here, and they're always buzzing, and they're always fucking loud, alright? No one told me that when you start to read Ryukishi's works, your world changes fundamentally. No one told me that you start to notice things that were in the background, and suddenly they're in the foreground of your life, alright? No one told me that. No one told me that when I finished Umineko, I would start to cry over stupid shit. No one told me that when you finish Umineko, you actually unlock a second, scarier side of all music, which is that every song you listen to now is an Umineko AMV. And there's nothing you can do about it. That's just the world you live in now. Any song you listen to, you're like, man, imagine like a fucking Umineko animatic on top of this just playing in my head. It's fucking crazy. My brain is riddled with holes, and all of them are being filled with Umineko information. I haven't listened to the songs you sent me yet, no. Alright, so here's the hard part of doing the Higurashi art style. You can tell when Ryukishi was drawing this, he was like, if I give the hair more strands, it looks better. And then when he got to Umineko, where's Rosa? Look at the difference between how these two characters are rendered. This is the same artist. This is not an indictment of the quality of either of these. It is just showing how much the art style has developed, particularly in how much more simplistic the rendering has become. Just like, again, look at how layered her hair is, all these individual strands. There's colored line art in Higurashi, which is really important. And then you get to Umineko, and straight bangs are portrayed rather simply, just two-tone shading. You just have the darker side for the accent, some little shine on the buttons here. Whereas in this one, you can tell it's like very much like more details equals more better. In some regards, which is kind of like a part of the artistic journey, is learning like just how much you want to render your piece to fit your style. I'm really interested to start reading Kikonia, so that I can see how much his style has developed therein as well. Which, apparently you're not allowed to stream Kikonia past like chapter 2 or something like that. Strange. Well, not strange. That seems to be pretty like par for the course in terms of how a lot of visual novels have their streaming policies be, right? Past the halfway point. Gotcha. Past the halfway point. Don't... Ozinu, I already said don't worry about the gun. Do you trust Mion? Do you trust friend of the channel Mion Sonozaki? Do you trust her? If so, don't worry about the gun. It's not important. Anyway, where were we? So we got like... That's not what I wanted. No, it's too sharp. I'm gonna go like wider chibi face. Real little nose. Wrong one. I'm not sure how to do more like closed eye here. That's not right, certainly. It's like kind of good enough. I don't know. Here's the problem. In trying to replicate a more like amateur art style, I have to wonder like how much of it is me not being able to replicate it and how much is me being like I feel like I'm drawing from like how to draw anime Scholastic Book Fair guide. You know what I mean? Of course, we need the signature Ryukishi little blushies. Those are really important. Now the hair is the hard part. How do I want to draw this hair? I'm just going to start throwing strands places and see where we land. And hopefully we get where we want. To make this into more of like a frown. Go. I know this has been asked before, but on a general topic, how and why did you start drawing? I don't have like a particularly profound reason. I've always been sort of like sketching and doodling stuff for as long as I can remember. If you want to know like when did I start drawing in like an official capacity, or when did I like start focusing on it as like an aspect of like a functional part of my identity as a person, that didn't really start until I started watching Joe's streams and I became a fan artist, and that became like you know, a big hobby for me to learn. And so, you know, mostly I drew because it was something to learn and to keep me occupied in a lot of ways. But also, you know, it's something that brings me a like pretty relatively great deal of joy in being able to like express proficiency over some things. You know, it feels good to be able to do something which I generally think is considered to be pretty difficult and pretty like out of the reach of a lot of people, when in reality, if you really like, it's one of those things where if you just sort of try, more people are capable of it than they realize. It's just that art in any form, it can be very difficult to feel the courage to put yourself out there. It's a very vulnerable medium in a lot of ways. And part of learning to draw is kind of like learning how to be vulnerable, how to show off what you have, how to recognize weaknesses that you have, and how to grow in response to those weaknesses. And to learn, when something's not really a weakness and when it's actually just something that's an aspect of your art style. And even just like developing a style in general is a really important part of any artistic journey. It's something that takes a lot of confidence, and that can be very difficult to like manifest confidence while doing. It's something that I've lost a lot of confidence in recent months doing, and that's part of why I'm doing a stream like this in the first place. Is I want something that compels me to draw so that I can understand I can still do this. You're gonna struggle a lot when you're learning to draw, but ultimately being able to create the things that I see in my mind and to be able to share them with others and for them to understand and recognize the same vision that I had is one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever experienced. And so that is why I draw. It's not why I started, but it's why I still do it. And as far as the how, like if you want to learn how to draw, just get like a shitty, cheap XP Pen tablet. You don't need to get a fancy screen tablet. If you want to draw digitally, there's a lot of like free resources and stuff like that. I use Krita. Krita is free software. It doesn't cost a penny. It has never cost me a penny in all the 5 years that I've been using it to use Krita. It's got plenty of options. It's got a bunch of different things. There's a lot of tools that I don't even use. I probably am only using Krita at about 10% of its full capacity. I use the same 3 brushes that are all just different variations and sizes of the same one brush, really. You don't have to learn everything. You don't have to do everything. You just sort of find your comfort zone and then find out why you enjoy doing it and keep doing it for as long as it keeps bringing you joy. I can relate to that loss of confidence when it comes to writing. I recently started something that is both very rewarding to write, but also makes me realize a lot of my own shortcomings in a way that kind of makes me feel less confident in my writing, as you sort of described. Yeah, and that's part of the process. There's no shame in realizing that you have shortcomings. There's no shame in recognizing that you have room to grow. You're always growing. That's how it works. Confidence is something that comes with experience. And the more you do it, unfortunately, the better you get at it. It's just something that you do have to work through sometimes, which can be really hard when you're in a rough spot because you don't want to work through it because you know you've made stuff before that made you proud, and what you're making right now doesn't make you proud, and so you don't even want to try it. But sometimes you just need to push through. Even if it means, drawing a little sketch here and there. If it means writing a one paragraph rather than a whole essay. Even if it means, taking a little more time to carefully word a message online. That's how I really interact with writing a lot in my day-to-day. Stuff like that. Yeah. Leave Sprite is a floss pixel art program based on Aspirite for people who are interested in that kind of artwork. I've been using it for my amateur character portraits. Ooh, I'll have to actually check that one out. I've been looking for a pixel art program. I usually just draw in Krita. That can be interesting. Howdy, Vardox. Where was I? I think this is a little too... We still doing the thing yet? Yep. I'm probably going to be live for another 40 minutes or so here. No, not quite.
Feel alright. I feel good. Just walk your step with me, dance with me, here with me, feel alright. I feel good on you, alright. To make a groove all night.
That part of it. Get that there.
Feel alright. I feel good. Just want you step with me, dance with me. Feel alright.
Alright. Trying to keep it relatively light on detail because the Higurashi style, most of the detail comes from the rendering. A lot of like solid lines and elsewhere. Oh!
Close your eyes. Come
Got you as an
to
earring.
me. Close your eyes.
I could be more accurate, I could be more precise with my lines or whatever. Your thoughts on Will and Leon's relationship? Not very nuanced ones, I don't think. I mean, I like them as a ship. They're pretty cute. I think it's really cool that Willard is someone who is very like dedicated to finding the truth, and yet still a lot of his relationship with Leon is sort of substantiated on his willingness to let them, keep their own thoughts and feelings to themselves. Doesn't ask them to like clarify on their gender, stuff like that. He's willing to let Leon, trust them as far as a lot of different things in the text. I think it's really interesting, especially because his whole thing is that he's like retired. He could theoretically, once upon a time, he was way more ruthless as well. But now he's more mellow, and so having him as this inquisitor who is sort of mellowed out and is now just being very kind to someone who has a lot of mystery around them, but he doesn't interrogate that mystery is really nice. Shoulders are kind of... bad. That would probably come up. I think that's good. Well, this is a little high. Well, kind of like... I don't know. The boobs are weird in Higurashi, as you can clearly see. I think I liked it better how I had it. Even if it's a little weird. There you go. It's Shiroya. From Shiroya City. Fuck, I took her face off again. Oh, no, cancel. Oh, my goodness. fine. Everything's okay. Don't worry about it. Move her on over here. Sorry if this was asked before. What do you think the titular seagulls represent in Umineko as a whole? I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, if I had to try and guess, I think it might be like there's definitely some imagery in regards to like the seagulls returning and birds being able to fly as like this general metaphor of like freedom from the earth in some way. So you could look at it from that angle, and with the seagulls not being there with the storm, there's like no escape, there's no freedom. Something along those lines would probably be my like baseline kind of like general analysis of what's going on there. Could also be playing with, you know, the fact that Umineko, sea, cat, catbox, all that stuff. And when they return, the catbox has been opened. The Uminekos are back, but I'm not really sure. My best guess is more so just general ideas of freedom and liberation. But I don't know if that's necessarily a very informed interpretation of the text. Right. And last up, Rena as a worm on a string. No, stop grabbing that. There we go. Let me make sure I remember what a worm on a string looks like. Oh yeah, okay. Gotcha. Need a more dynamic pose. I need a more dynamic pose for Rena. Making it look a little scraggly. It's very important to the appeal of worm on a string that it look a little scraggly. No, they're very googly eyes. They're directly next to each other? Yeah, they're directly next to The frilly dress is very important. Where's Rena? Hold on. No, it really is just... Okay, gotcha. And I'm giving her a weapon. Don't worry about it. It truly ain't Reno without her cleaver. There she is. Rena on a string. You think she drives a French car? I don't think that she... Well, no, she definitely drives. She's perfect to me. There she is. That's looking a little too braggly over here. Hold on. Perfect. There she is. A Renault? Okay. Alright. +2 on that one. Okay. Nice. All right. The Sakutaro one. You need to get rid of this real quick. Oh, stop decapitating him. Oh no. Where's his head? Oh, there's just one layer. Okay. Move you up here. Wide boulder. Aurelia City. And run on a string. There we go. Nice. I think this went pretty well, all things considered. Oh, big stretch. See for any last-minute questions we have here. Any idea when the next one we cry pod is up? Yep. Lerf answered that pretty handily. I'm still too new to this to really have any concrete answers regarding that. But do know there is a second Jelly episode, I think I've talked about this before, that will be released on my VODs channel at some point, which has my thoughts after episode 6, but before episode 7. It's been so long since I've recorded it that I don't really remember what my own thoughts were there. So I'll be excited to listen to that whenever it does eventually release. That ought to be interesting. But yeah. Are you going to be hosting the podcast? I am, yes. I'm going to be a regular host on the podcast. Whenever I was about halfway through Umineko, Lurf and Mushroom approached me and they asked, like, hey, no pressure. And of course, if your feelings on Umineko change whenever you finish the text, feel free to change your answer now. But, we really like talking with you, and we were wondering if you'd like to become an official member and, join us for more discussions. And I said, absolutely. This has been one of the most enriching periods of my entire life, and I am itching for any chance I can to discuss more literature. I would love to do that. So look forward to seeing me in some podcast episodes. I think we're done here, unless anyone has any last minute sketch requests or any other questions they have regarding Umineko. This won't be your last time to ask him. Feel free to just ask me about them in Umineko Unrecord or on stream and stuff like that. But this is the last, I guess, context that's like explicitly ask me questions that are Umi full spoilers. Are there any questions at all that someone asked that I haven't gotten to and you really want to know the answer to? I would love to answer if possible. Jelly Joe Nut podcast to cancel? Not at all. We haven't had a lot of time to talk about it. Things have been very, very, very busy for all three of us. But, this isn't like a full-time obligation in any way. But we'll see. Would you still love Angie City if she was a worm? Absolutely, yeah. I got nothing. See you guys in the 07 wiki for all the confession and side letters for the Umi post-game. Oh, man. It'll be... I can't wait for Umineko 2 to begin. Umineko 2 is going to go crazy. The only thing that sucks about Umineko 2 is that I have to read it on my computer when I would really love to read it on my Steam Deck. That would be nice. Favorite Umineko OP? I haven't watched all of them. That's a good question. I'll have to check them out now that I've finished everything. I feel like the first one is very hard to beat. Are you going to read all the Umi side stories? Probably some of them. I don't know about all of them, but like enough of them have caught my attention that I feel like I'd be interested in reading them. The one that I'm most interested in reading, honestly, is Arigato for 556. I really like the Chiesters, and so I'm interested to see a side story that's focused on 556, who exists as just like, this kind of tragic figure who's just gone. Any Umineko stuff I have to ask you is unfortunately more suited to a lengthier discussion. Or maybe not, unfortunately. I mean, if you have any burning question at all that you think, like, usually I stream for another 20 minutes, so I don't mind going a little more in depth if people have questions they want answered. That's why I wanted to stream in the first place. I feel like I've answered a few questions, and definitely in depth, but I feel like there were a lot of questions that people asked that I wasn't able to catch them as they were scrolling by. I'm gonna see if I can scroll back through my chat log in this and see. What do you think? Oh, no, I've gone too far. Do you think Amakusa actually planned to kill Angie, or do you think it was Angie's paranoia acting out? This is actually a really interesting question. Thank you for asking that. I think that... I think I talked about this earlier, where the magic and trick endings take place in fundamentally different worlds. And the magic ending has this slight moment where it talks about how Angie patches things up with... I can't remember his name. It starts with an O. Okonogi-san? Was it Okonogi? I actually got it. Fucking nice. It talks about her patching things up with Okonogi-san and like handing off responsibility of the Ushiromiya group to him, and how the actions that were taken in episode 4 were in response to Angie saying stuff like, oh, maybe I'll just donate it all to charity or just do something equally reckless. And that caused them to get desperate because the future of the Ushiromiya group was uncertain, and they had to do whatever they could to ensure that they could be stable in the future. And so Angie just taking all of that responsibility and giving it to someone who actually is invested in that stuff and wants to manage that and make sure it's for the best of everyone, smoothed everything over, and none of the bad things that happened in episode 4 happened at all. It takes a brief moment to say, like, because Angie did this, nothing bad came of it at all. Whereas in the trick ending, she did say stuff like she was going to donate to charity. They make a point of mentioning that again whenever she's talking to Amakusa, and that's part of her explanation for why all of these things are happening. So I do believe that in the trick ending, where we are just about to arrive on Rakenjima, and we know what happens whenever she arrives on Rakenjima, which is that she's cornered by Kasumi and her bodyguards. We know that, like, she's in a dire situation. And so her recognizing that she's in a dire situation and coming to all these, having all this deduction regarding it and stuff like that, I think that, yes, Amakusa did actually plan to kill Angie. I don't think Angie was being entirely paranoid in the trick ending. And I think that's part of what makes it such an interesting bad ending, is there is some room for doubt, but reasonably speaking, given the situation that she was in, the decisions that she made and the conclusions that she came to were perfectly plausible. We know that she was in danger. We know that her life was in danger. We know that she was being followed to the island. We know that all of that is true and her deductions are correct. So her deductions regarding what happens with Amakusa and how he reacts leads me to believe that, yes, she was correct. Amakusa was planning to kill her as a backup plan if she ended up surviving the encounter with Kasumi. Now, where things get a little more ambiguous is when she kills the captain as well, which, all things considered, she kind of had to, but it's definitely not a good thing. That one is where it becomes more ambiguous, where, like, we don't know for certain what the captain's deal was. We don't know if he actually did have any bad intentions, if he was in on any of it. But, like, she kind of has to, just to secure her own safety. Amakusa having the same old gun the goons Akira's family allegedly owns leaves a ton of room for speculation. Yeah, having the Tokarev is a really huge indictment on his part, I think. I really, really, really like the trick ending for feeling like a perfectly legitimate ending, even though it is definitely a bad ending. Her becoming Erica, when even in episode 7, I think Erica is trying to stop her from becoming Erica, is a really interesting route for her to take, because it's perfectly plausible for where Angie is at that point of the story. Still don't know if I'm actually going to bother with Higurashi, though. Heard of something called Higanbana. Is that also from Ryukishi? Higanbana is also from Ryukishi, yes. From what I understand, it is a shorter series. It is more overtly an anthology series, and it is the most horror-focused of all of his works. Lerf said that they were reading it, and they think it's some of his best horror writing. It is like some genuinely gut-wrenching, terrifying stuff in there. It seems like it deals with some pretty heavy topics as well. So not like a stream read, for sure, but definitely like a read on your own time type of thing. Was he in cahoots with them? Is it just a more common gun in the underworld? Probably just proves the existence of that backup plan, though. That's what I was thinking, too. Noted I've only finished the first story yet, but you had a very strong endorsement that I thought I'm definitely going to read it myself at some point. At the Witch Hunter conference in episode 8, do you think Hachijo was lying about being able to open Ava's diary? I don't think she was lying about it, no. I do think that all of that was a ploy to get everyone to just fuck off forever about the diary. Because the diary, she probably has read it herself. And she probably knows what it contains. But I think that by having the diary, which she would know is a legitimate source, and by claiming it to be legitimate, and then getting everyone there and saying, no, it's called off, you don't deserve to see it, she completely eliminates, in the public eye, the possibility that it can be taken as legitimate. Because now it has to be viewed from the lens of, is that real? Was that just a publicity stunt? Well, we know Toya is known for these forgeries and known for these sorts of things. It casts what should be a cut and dry, legitimate piece of information and evidence regarding the events of Rakenjima into complete and utter mystery once again, and it can no longer be trusted wholesale. I think that is entirely her strategy, is to take what is supposed to be this legitimate, singular reading and what history would regard as the truth of the events of Rakenjima, and essentially, for the sake of everyone in the Ushiromiya family, and for the sake of laying the mystery and their souls to rest, destroying its legitimacy. I think that's what's going on there in the episode 8 conference that she holds. I do have a weird Mandela effect thing about the trick ending. I could have sworn we see Angie in her Witch of Truth outfit again. Interesting. Apparently her Witch of Truth outfit is was not in the original game, which I think is really cool. And apparently in the manga, she gets another witch outfit whenever she finally becomes the Witch of Resurrection, which I think is really cool. Igambana is much shorter. Good to know. Yeah, I think that's everything that I have. Again, if anyone has any other questions, speak now or at least temporarily hold your peace, and then we're gonna raid Allison, my good friend Allison. I will say Allison is currently playing a game called Tunic, which is thank you for the great response. Thank you for the great questions. This is, I mean, I have a degree for this stuff. So, obviously I love discussing literature. It is something that I hold very near and dear to my heart. So being able to rediscover this love that I have and figure out, not only am I good at this, I love doing it. And having this prolonged period of my life where I am allowed to engage with it, not for a grade or not for any academic or worth any specifically beneficial purpose other than just for the love of the game, has been one of the most fulfilling, enriching things I've experienced in a long time. It is part of why I will look back so fondly on these days in the future. And truly, genuinely, again, thank you to Joe and Mouse for orchestrating all of this. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of it. But also, thank you to all of you. Thank you to everyone who read alongside us, who talked to me in stream chats, who theorized, who didn't spoil me, who gave me good questions to riff off of, who just, listened to what I had to say. Getting to experience Umineko with you has been beautiful. I would not trade it for the world. So thank you so much for allowing me to experience this. Thank you so much for creating this with me. It has been an honor. And it is something that I sincerely hope that I do not forget for as long as I live. Thank you for that. One last question. Do you agree with the central point of Umineko? I just can't agree that self-delusion is good. Am I misinterpreting the work? I think having a blanket statement of self-delusion is good is not necessarily how I interpret the end of Umineko. I think the end of Umineko, the way that you are meant to interpret it, or at least the way that I interpret it, is magic does exist. It is a fundamental part of how we live our lives. It is a fundamental part of how we view the world around us. It is not a concrete physical thing that allows us to influence reality, as in alchemy or, killing people on the spot or having control over the elements. But it is this immutable force that binds the world together and shapes how we view the world. And it is not just a good part of life or a good thing that magic is real. It is an essential part of life that magic is real. How you choose to perceive the world and knowing how to perceive the world, and how to create your own outlook and perspective is essential to survival. It is essential to existence. It is just a matter of examining your surroundings, examining yourself, examining your thoughts and your perceptions and your feelings, and discovering what magic is to you, how you perceive it. And understanding that and incorporating it as part of your worldview. Magic is all around you. You just need to discover and create a way to see and utilize it in order to live a more rich and fulfilling life. That is how I view the message of Umineko. It can be a cruel world, and truth is something that helps ground us, but it is also something that can destroy us. And so at the end of the day, you need to learn how to live and how to bring yourself joy without harming others. That's my personal philosophy. That is what I will leave you with. Again, Allison is going to be playing a game called Tunic. It is a more in the Metroidvania genre. It is something that is played through discovery as a massive aspect of coming to understand the game, is learning things about the game, is making progress in the game. So if you have thought about playing Tunic, be aware there could be some spoilers, and those are very important to the experience of playing Tunic. If not, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for talking. Thank you very much for reading. Thank you very much for helping me in this act of creation and for joining me in it. It has been a pleasure. Until next time, have a good one, folks. See ya. Who are you?